I'm in Konoha and I want to be Hokage. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Scum and Waste Princess. Tsunade-sama, I'll leave my brother in your care. Not far from the main entrance of the medical camp, in a slightly remote corner, Tsunade Hime of Konoha was staring at the person who said this with a gloomy face. After a long silence, Tsunade finally spoke in a very suppressed tone. Shikaku, do you know what you are saying? Nara Shikato bent down deeply, his face full of shame. Tsunade tapped the ground with her heels in annoyance, one hand on her waist, her face full of impatience. You should know that what I hate most are those scumbags who only care about the mission and have no emotions. Nara Shikato raised his head. Lady Tsunade, I always believe that my brother is not that kind of person. Don't blame me for being too blunt. Tsunade seemed to be outraged and laughed. A person who abandons his teammates for the mission, avoids the front line and wants to squeeze into the medical unit? Isn't this a scumbag? Nara Shikato said firmly. Please don't say that, Lady Tsunade. My brother will never. No need to say that. Tsunade waved her hand and interrupted him with impatience on her face. I don't like to have a guy who disgusts me hanging around in front of me all the time. Nara Shikato wanted to insist and say something good to his brother. But the Tsunade of Konoha didn't have such good patience, and her temper finally broke out. Enough. Nara Shikato. I came here to listen for the sake of Jiraiya, the idiot, and his idiot disciple, not for you to tell me what to do. I will never approve of that kind of scum. Nara Shikato looked uncomfortable, wanting to say something but stopping. Tsunade turned around and was about to leave. At this time, she saw a boy with black braids walking towards the sunset from a distance. The man was about 15 years old, but he was already very mature, but his face still had a youthful immaturity. He was wearing the regular ninja suit of Konoha ninja, with a forward protector pinned on his right arm. His face was pale and his appearance was above average, but his slightly narrow and long phoenix eyes made the boy who came here show a unique temperament. He was heard speaking from a distance. I was wondering why I couldn't find you, brother. So you came to the medical unit. I just mentioned that I wanted to learn some medical ninjutsu. You're worrying too much, brother. As Tsunade got closer, she felt that the boy's phobia was particularly attractive. The boy seemed to glance at her, and then she heard him continue. Who is this person? Look at her sloppy appearance, not even as tall as me, poorly dressed, and obviously overnourished. Oh, she is not the medical ninja who is rumored to suffer from hemophobia, the waste princess of one of the 3 ninjas of Konoha? Tsunade's face darkened as she listened. Huh? She grabbed the boy's collar. What did you say? The boy's name was Nara Shikato. After being grabbed by Tsunade, he didn't look nervous. Instead, he continued to taunt. What is wrong with what I said? Please tell me frankly, you don't have hemophobia, or are you not a medical ninja? Or maybe you are a medical ninja, but you have hemophobia. If this is not waste, then what is it? Nara Shikato's words were so sharp that Tsunade was speechless for a moment. After taking several deep breaths, she finally suppressed her anger and decided not to bother with a little kid. Nara Shikato also ran over and scolded. Shikato, apologize to Tsunade-sama. Nara Shikato looked like you are really Tsunade-sama. I'm so sorry, Tsunade-sama. It's my fault. I'm a straightforward person and shouldn't tell the truth. Tsunade's forehead was throbbing with blue veins. It seems that you are the Nara Shikato who was rumored to have decisively abandoned 2 teammates for the mission. Now you want to hide in the logistics unit and escape the front line. Nara Shikato was a little surprised. Didn't you expect that I have become famous? Tsunade was speechless. Am I praising you? Nara Shikato also had a headache and said, Shikato, you can't do this to brother. Shut up. Nara Shikato immediately shut up. Tsunade was a little surprised at the relationship between the brothers. Why does it seem that the younger brother is stronger than the older brother? However, this thought only flashed through her mind, and she stopped thinking about it. Instead, she looked at Nara Shikato carefully. It must be said that if this boy didn't have a big mouth, he would be handsome, especially his phoenix eyes, which made people want to look at him twice. His eyes were also very positive. Unlike many teenagers or adults who would focus on a certain part of themselves at first sight, this boy just glanced at her figure. Thinking of the rumor mentioned by Jiraiya, she frowned again. Want to join the medical team? Nara Shikato nodded truthfully. I have this idea. To escape the front line, I have this idea a little bit. It seems that I thought too much. You are really a scum. Same here, waste princess. Tsunade gnashed her teeth in hatred, but she endured it. Why would she argue with a little kid? She turned and left. Nara Shikato sighed and said with some regret, Shikato, what you just said was too much. Nara Shikato didn't say anything. From a distance, Tsunade's voice came again, report to the medical unit tomorrow. It's better for a scum like you to stay in the logistics department than to stay on the front line. This way, you will be much more reliable for other ninjas. After all, when on a mission, it's really scary for such a person to suddenly find a reason to abandon his teammates. It's safer to put him in the medical unit and be responsible for logistics work. At least he won't hurt others. And in the conversation just now, Tsunade also found that this boy is mature and different from his peers. It seemed that there was something else going on. Nara Shikato opened his mouth, but didn't react for a while. Could the provocation method still be used here? Nara Shikato waved his hand at Shikaku. Well, that's it. I'll leave first, brother. You should be careful too. It's best to stay by Minato Namake's side. The yellow flash is good at escaping. After all, time and space ninjutsu, I don't understand it at all. Swish. Nara Shikato disappeared directly on the spot with the instant body technique. Nara Shikaku touched his head in annoyance and glanced at the sky. He thought that Shikaku might have gone to sleep again. Just as he thought, when Nara Shikaku appeared again, he had already arrived at the camping area of the wartime camp. It was getting late and the sun was about to set. If he didn't sleep now, when would he? Everything in the ninja world was hard, except for health preservation. After all, early to bed and early to rise is the truth. Before going to bed, he took a special look at the rows of virtual small words that were presented in data. Name. Nara Shikato. Gender, male. Age. 15 health points. 99 abilities, Haki, Armament Haki, top, 99%, Observation Haki, Elementary, 9%, Conqueror Haki, not yet activated, Ninjutsu, Shadow Manipulation Technique, Advanced, 89%, Fire Escape, Elementary, 9%, Lightning Escape, Elementary, 9%, Water Escape, Elementary, 9%, Taijutsu, Konoha Taijutsu, Elementary, 9%, Jinjutsu, Konoha Jinjutsu, Elementary, 9%. Chapter 2 Shadow. Nara Shikato is a time traveler who was kicked twice by fate. The first time he traveled was to a world where pirates were rampant. I had read the comics before, and I thought it was exciting at first, but after the real person went into battle, I found that the situation was not right. The probability of cannon fodder being wiped out was too high, and if you were hit by a fierce person, you would be useless. Fortunately, his plug-in was also launched in time. As long as you have a regular life and work schedule and insist on keeping healthy, you can accumulate health points through daily healthcare. Health points can continuously strengthen your own abilities and become stronger without a limit. So he decisively chose to hide in the Navy headquarters and strive to be an inconspicuous and dedicated soldier guarding the Navy headquarters. Because his level was too low, he had not yet come into contact with the 6 styles, but by a chance, he got the practice method of domineering. He simply buried his head in practicing domineering and hid for 10 years. His own practice, coupled with a continuous strengthening of health points. Finally, he had the armed color domineering to the top level, and his self-conscious ability to save his life increased greatly. As a result, before he officially left the mountain, he suddenly received an order to go out on duty. He was ordered to follow a big boss of the Navy to capture an arrogant pirate who had provoked the world government. It was said that it was a straw hat boy who had just started his career. His name was Monkey D. Luffy. Dearman immediately said that the pressure was a bit high. The background of the rubber man was too intimidating. Fortunately, his arm color was basically full, and he could still keep himself stable even if he couldn't beat him. When he went out to sea, the boss who was smoking with 2 big cigarettes in his mouth stood on the bow with one hand on his waist, confidently saying that he wanted everyone to watch his performance. This time, he would catch the Straw Hat Boy no matter what. As a result, before he saw the smoke man show his power, a strange sea wave directly overturned the warship. The vast sea is boundless, and when he woke up again, he had been kicked into the Naruto world by the goddess of fate. He became a member of the Nara clan of Konoha Ninja Village. So, he could only live in the Naruto world for another 15 years with a new identity of Nara Dearman. Don't ask him why he was only 15 years old. because when he was kicked over this time, he was still a cell. The next day, before dawn, before the sun had even climbed above the horizon, Nara Shikato had already started washing up. The health system does not allow for late sleeping, and Shikato has become accustomed to the discipline of going to bed early and getting up early. After this period of regular work and rest, the health points finally increased a little, reaching 3 digits. Health points correspond to one's own abilities. 1 point corresponds to 1%, but every time the ability value breaks 9, it is a small breakthrough, so every time it breaks 9, 10 health points are needed to upgrade. From the beginning to the middle to the high, and the high to the top, these staged breakthroughs require 100 points. At present, the Armament Haki seems to be stuck after 99%. There is a small plus sign for upgrading, but it is black and white and cannot be clicked. Shikato can only invest all 100 health points this time in the family secret technique, and choose to push the shadow manipulation technique to the top level first, crossing the threshold of the advanced level. Ninjutsu, Yin shadow manipulation technique, top, 90%. At the moment of upgrading, the application of shadow ninjutsu in Shikarin's mind became clearer and more thorough. He raised his finger slightly, and a black shadow on the ground condensed into a thin line and wrapped around his index finger. With a slight hook of his index finger, the shadow line was like a lightning arc, nailing into the compacted ground and cutting a dark and thin gap diagonally. A trace of surprise flashed in Shikarin's eyes. The top-level shadow manipulation technique was much easier to use than the advanced level. The advanced shadow manipulation technique still required the ninjutsu to be performed in a rigid manner to use the shadow's ability. The top-level shadow manipulation technique can almost be regarded as using the shadow as smoothly as swinging an arm. However, some complex shadow manipulation methods still require hand seals, but the hand seals are much simpler. In this way, the top-level armed color domineering, coupled with the shadow manipulation technique that has just been upgraded to the top level. Shikato didn't dare to say that he was invincible, but if he wanted to really fight him, he should first fight with Shadow, and then think about what ability he could use to break his Armament Haki. And when I master the medical ninjutsu, then even if you break the Armament Haki, I can still heal myself. Are you angry? Shikato's not very strong body hides an extremely hard heart. As long as I don't get hurt, you will definitely lose. However, Shikato's Haki is good at the moment, but the amount of chakra in his body is still not enough. It is slightly more than that of ordinary Chunin, but it is also limited. So he is quite interested in things like tailed beasts. With tailed beasts, chakra can be mass-produced. But the tailed beasts are just talking about it casually now. You know, not to mention the terrifying combat power of the tailed beasts, the sealing technique needed to seal the tailed beasts alone is very troublesome. No one in the clan is proficient in it. This is very troublesome, and he can only improvise. At the same time, the trouble caused by the previous mission also made Shikato a little irritated. Abandoning teammates, carrying out missions, etc., he still doesn't understand what's going on. Although 2 teammates did die, it has little to do with him. At that time, they went to carry out the mission separately and each had their own arrangements. As a result, 2 teammates died, and he was inexplicably blamed. Although, if he really had to choose between teammates and missions, he would not necessarily choose teammates, but the unknown and the fact are not the same thing after all. Shikato heard that the rumor that he abandoned his teammates was spread from Jiraiya, one of the 3 ninjas. He still hasn't figured out the specifics. But he didn't care too much. Whether it was a misunderstanding or a conspiracy, as long as he was strong enough, it wouldn't be a problem. Of course, he is still not strong enough now, so he just needs to stay alive and develop. In the medical camp, Tsunade came a little early this morning, but even so, when she arrived, she still saw the boy sitting in the corner from a distance, holding a scroll related to medical ninjas and reading it with relish. This surprised her a little. The other party seemed to be very studious. Right now, the Third Ninja World War is in full swing, and the war is still in a tense state. There are wounded people sent to the medical camp every moment. To be honest, Tsunade's idea of setting up medical ninjas is indeed a good one, but it is not appropriate to equip each team with a medical ninja. Although this can effectively improve the chance of treatment, medical ninjas themselves are not good at fighting. Not only are they easy to drag their feet, but they are also easy to be targeted by traps. On the contrary, the role of establishing a wartime medical camp is obviously much greater. This is also after the baptism of war, Konoha began to cultivate combat-oriented medical ninjas. When Shikato sat in the corner to study, the busy ninjas around him would still look here from time to time. After all, there have been rumors about Shikato recently, and they are still spreading very strongly. The direct bloodline of one of the old Konoha families, Ino, Shika, and Joe, has something wrong, which is more or less eye-catching, especially before this. Nara Shikato was still famous for his genius. This completely exploded, not to mention that the person who said this was Jiraiya, one of the three ninjas, who naturally made people believe it. People kept pointing and talking about Shikato, and occasionally there were voices of contempt. Shikato didn't take it seriously, and just continued to observe the scroll. "Oh, scumbag, you have a good attitude," a not-so-sharp mocking voice came. Shikato put away the scroll, stood up and shot back, "Oh, the Waste Princess is here. Good morning, Waste Princess, please give me more advice, Waste Princess." Bang! Tsunade retracted her fist with her eyes twitching, glanced at Shikato who just lowered his head without changing his expression, turned around and left. "Follow me." While walking in front, from an angle that Shikato couldn't see, she kept rubbing her red right hand, gritting her teeth in her heart. "Is this stinky boy's head made of stone?" Hiss, "It hurts." Shikato didn't say anything. Is the top-level Armament Haki a joke? Chapter 3 Jiraiya. During the war, the medical camp was quite tense. Every day, wounded soldiers or victims came in and out of here, and those with serious injuries basically said goodbye to their ninja careers. The victims would be sealed in scrolls by the sealing class, and then sent back to the heroes' cemetery in Konoha for reburial. Tsunade's identity is quite special, and she has a high status in the medical camp. However, because of her hemophobia, she has withdrawn from the medical frontline. At this stage, she is only responsible for detoxification, drug research, and guidance of some talented medical ninjas, so she has relatively free time. However, even so, in the next period of time, Shikato will only spend a small part of his time with Tsunade to accept her harsh guidance. The remaining half of his time was arranged by her to be with a little girl about 11 years old. Let him learn medical knowledge and some practical medical ninjutsu. The little girl is pretty and is called Shizune by Tsunade. It is said that she is the niece of Kato-dan. That is to say, Kato-dan died too early. If it had been a little later, with Tsunade's enthusiasm, she would have been a widow now. Shizune was very polite to Shikato and was a relatively shy Konoha Jonin. However, her medical ninjutsu is still very good. After all, she had been following Tsunade's side to receive guidance since she was very young. At least in terms of medical level, she was much better than Shikato who had just arrived. Of course, the most important thing was that she was much more patient than Tsunade, and she was not as irritable as Tsunade. It was only after they really got along for a while that Tsunade gradually put away her obvious hostility towards Shikato and felt that this kid seemed not bad. Except for the frequent quarrels between the two, their daily relationship was relatively harmonious. At present, the Third Ninja World War was in full swing. Compared with the previous years, the intensity of the war has been reduced a little, so the workload of the medical team has also been reduced. Unless there is a large-scale defeat, Shikato still has plenty of time to study. In addition to daily healthcare, he spent almost all of his free time on learning and practicing. Every day, he was either learning medical ninjutsu or performing the medical ninjutsu he had learned on the wounded. With his already good talent, coupled with the forced improvement of health points, the growth of medical ninjutsu was almost visible to the naked eye. This also made Tsunade's guidance to Shikato more serious. In the morning, Tsunade took the rare opportunity to guide Shikato again. There was a half-dead monkey on the operating table. A toxin had been implanted in the monkey's body. Shikato needed to extract the toxin before the monkey died. This was a very sophisticated B-level medical ninjutsu, the technique of extracting the toxin. It was a great test of the mastery of medical knowledge. Shikato had failed several times before, which hurt the monkey. When Shikato was concentrating on extracting the toxin, the door was suddenly pushed open anxiously. Bang! A man with long white hair, 2 long red marks under his eyes, a Konoha Ford protector, and wearing a Konoha standard ninja suit rushed in. "Tsunade, I heard that you accepted the guy who abandoned his partner as your disciple." The hurried voice came in with the sound of the door being knocked open. Tsunade's face was a little dark. "Jiraiya, get out." Shikato just raised his eyelids and continued to extract the toxin meticulously, busy with the work at hand. After Jiraiya came in, he also saw Shikato on the experimental table, and quickly reacted, a little embarrassed. Sorry, I'll go out and wait for you. Tsunade waited until Jiraiya went out, and then said to Shikato, don't mind it, Jiraiya is used to being noisy, don't take it to heart. Shikato was concentrating on the toxin wrapped in chakra. At this moment, the spots of poison were being extracted from the monkey's body bit by bit, and at the same time, he replied with two minds at the same time, it's nothing, we are not the same kind of people. In fact, there is no need for him to avoid me. I don't take the words of irrelevant people to heart. Anyway, this rumor has been around for a long time, and he has long been used to it. Tsunade glanced at Shikato's serious profile, and after listening to what he said, she felt that she had something to say. During this period of time, her attitude in guiding him has become more and more correct. Even if they can't be called master and apprentice, they can be considered friends. Does the irrelevant people he mentioned include herself? Tsunade kicked her heels irritably, glanced at Shikato, and saw that he was always concentrating on practicing medical ninjutsu, so she walked out the door first. Seeing Jiraiya standing not far away, Tsunade said unhappily, what nonsense are you talking about? Who told you that I accepted an apprentice? Jiraiya touched the back of his head awkwardly, I heard that you have been teaching a bad ninja these days, so. Tsunade walked over, looked back and whispered, Jiraiya, I heard that the matter of Shikato was spread by you. Tell me honestly, how did you know that Shikato abandoned his teammates? Jiraiya frowned when he heard this. Shikato? Nara Shikato? I remember that I received an emergency mission at that time, but it was still a little late when I went to help, and I failed to save the two guys. But at the last moment, I heard their dying oral statements, plus the battle environment at the scene. It was indeed ambushed by the people of the Hidden Cloud Village, and there were indeed traces of one person escaping, which basically matched their story completely, even exactly. And after Nara Shikato came back, he also acquiesced to this matter. If it was wrong, he should have explained it, but he didn't from beginning to end. Tsunade bit her fingernails, looking embarrassed. Jiraiya continued, by the way, Tsunade, you haven't told me yet, how could you agree to accept that kind of person? What do you mean by that kind of person? And, I've already said that I don't accept any apprentices. Bang! After a punch, Tsunade looked at her fist with satisfaction. Sure enough, it was still comfortable to hit Jiraiya's head. It's not because my fist is too soft, but because that kid's head is abnormal. Jiraiya covered his head and wailed. At this time, the door was pushed open. Shikato looked at the sky, well, it's almost time, I'll leave first, you guys can do whatever you want. The technique of extracting fine diseases finally succeeded once, and next he needs to keep trying. On the side, Jiraiya covered his head and looked at Nara Shikato. Tsunade stopped him, wait, I have something to ask you. Shikato stopped and calculated the time in his mind, please hurry up. I'm in a hurry to go to bed. Jiraiya, strange guy, is he in a hurry to go to bed? Tsunade was not surprised. She was used to this boy's biological clock, which was so punctual. Tsunade said seriously, tell me, did you abandon your teammates? Shikato looked up at her in surprise. Hasn't this matter been concluded? Tsunade, I want to hear your answer in person. Shikato, I don't think it counts. Shikato's answer was a little vague, because this matter could not be explained for the time being. Besides, he didn't think it was wrong to do so. As for accusing him of abandoning his teammates for the mission, he could only say that they had acted separately in the past few missions, but the two of them died this time. Of course, Shikato didn't know why they tricked him before they died and said that he abandoned them. However, wasn't the example of Hokage Tsukumo good before? He protected his teammates and gave up the mission, but the person who was accused committed suicide. What's the point of protecting teammates? Shikato turned and left, his figure disappeared instantly, and he didn't take it seriously. Tsunade was stunned on the spot, a little dazed. The time they had spent together had already changed her opinion of Lu Ren, but the answer just now made her feel a little upset. You little brat, you don't even want to give me an explanation. Chapter 4 Cannon Fodder. The next day, when Shikato rushed to the medical camp again, he had not seen Tsunade again. I heard that Tsunade and Jiraiya had received an emergency mission to reinforce the western battlefield of the Land of Earth and the Land of Fire. It is said that the Land of Earth took the opportunity to launch a large-scale sneak attack there, and almost had their homes stolen. To be honest, given Tsunade's hemophobia, I really don't know what use she would have had in the past. Maybe it was more to stabilize people's hearts. Anyway, from this day on, No one guided Shikato anymore, and he never got hit on the head again. Shikato was a little disappointed. After all, although Tsunade was never polite, she was still a good person. And when she left, she took Shizune away with her, and no one was willing to guide him. He could only continue to maintain his health while forcibly improving his medical ninjutsu with health points. He quickly fooled through a month. Shikato's medical ninjutsu finally improved to the last step of the elementary level, and then got stuck here. This kind of big promotion requires a lot of points. With the current top-level armed color, there is no need to waste them here for the time being. Ninjutsu, medical ninjutsu, primary, 29%. During this period of time, the attitudes of patients or medical ninjas in this camp towards Dear Man have also gradually changed. Because this kid loves to study too much, of course, he is a little too introverted. Although he will leave before it gets dark, he will come before it gets light. Every day, he is either studying with a scroll or practicing on the operating table. In addition, his medical ninjutsu has improved significantly, and his efficiency in treatment has been well received. He never procrastinates and is very clean and neat. People's perception of others often pays more attention to their attitude rather than one-sided words. Dear Man's style of not talking nonsense and doing things with his head down is very popular. This has led to his reputation starting to improve silently, even though Dear Man doesn't care about these. However, this kind of casual life will soon end. Without the help of Princess Tsunade, as a special Jonin of the direct bloodline of the Nara clan, there is no reason for him to stay in the medical camp and only take care of the small logistics. The higher-ups soon issued him a task commission. The delay of about a month was already a great favor to the Nara clan and Tsunade. This time, the task assigned to him was to serve as the captain of a support team and temporarily lead a team of Shinan to the Kanbubi Bridge area to support Minato Namikaze and others who were performing tasks there. Shikato didn't have any objections. Anyway, his previous teammates had already died. Although he had not yet been promoted to the rank of formal Jonin, he was a special Jonin after all. It was not a big problem to just lead a team of Shinan to temporarily support other teams. Although the captain of that team was called Minato Namikaze. When Shikato arrived at the gathering point mentioned in the task scroll, the three Shinan who were temporarily assembled had already arrived. One of them was leaning against the wall with a senbon in his mouth, staring blankly. One of them was young, but he had already grown a small layer of furry beard, which was obviously too precocious. At this time, this boy was licking his face and paying attention to the beautiful girl with long hair and red eyes beside him. The three of them were all around 12 years old. At this age, they should have just graduated from the ninja school. But during the special period of war, they were sent to the battlefield early. It was a bit cruel to think about it. After all, they were just children. Of course, strictly speaking, I was also a minor. Of course, this was only the physical age. Noticing the Nara Dear Man walking towards them, the three of them stopped the little actions at hand. Sarutobi Asuma touched his chin. This guy looks familiar. Yuhi blinked. Really? I think he is quite handsome. Asuma immediately became unhappy. Kurna, when did you go blind? He is not as handsome as me. Yuhi rolled her eyes at him and ignored him. The two of them were childhood sweethearts, but they had not yet been promoted to lovers. Shiranyu Genma remembered something and frowned, saying, "It's the man who was rumored a few days ago." Who? The Nara Shikato who abandoned his teammates. I heard that he was a genius of the Nara clan before. As soon as these words came out, Asuma and Hong's faces changed immediately. Tisk, who isn't a genius? But abandoning teammates, no matter what excuse they use, they're all scum. Yeah, I think so too. As Asuma and Hong finished talking one after another, Shikato just happened to come over. Shikato heard the conversation between the three, but didn't care. He was a little curious. After all, Asuma Sarutobi was the son of the third Hokage, so it was barely understandable to send him to the front line. But it was a bit exaggerated to entrust him to perform a rescue mission next to a bad ninja like himself. Is the third Hokage so careless? Really doesn't care about his son's life or death? Huh? Shikato looked at a dark corner as if he had sensed something, and happened to see a black figure hiding there. He was wearing a black hooded windbreaker and an animal mask on his face. The whole person was hidden under the windbreaker. If it weren't for his observation haki that detected something strange, he really wouldn't have been able to lock onto the hidden ANBU member in such a short time. Then he turned and looked in another direction, where there was another one. He was wearing the same black hooded windbreaker and animal mask, and he and another ANBU were in a corner. He was hiding well. Is he an elite Jonin in the ANBU? As expected, he is still worried about his son. In the corner, Inuzuka under the mask was also a little surprised, and he and his colleague Urim Shuei on the other side looked at each other. What a sharp insight! Should we say that he is worthy of being a genius of the Nara clan? As expected, there is something unusual. Hey, what are you looking around for? Hurry up and carry out the mission, a very dissatisfied voice sounded, and Sarutobi Asuma spoke quickly, without disguising the malice in his words. Dearman retracted his gaze. Well, okay. Then let's meet here tomorrow morning, huh? Sarutobi Asuma's eyes widened. What do you mean by meeting here tomorrow morning? What about now? Dearman, it's getting late, it's time to go to bed. X3 Asuma's face turned black, and he rushed over to grab Dearman's collar. As a result, he couldn't reach him, so he could only point at Dearman's nose. What the hell are you doing? Are you really a special Jonin? When you are on a mission, you actually go to bed first. Dearman was extremely perfunctory. Well, if you say it is, then it is. If you say I am not, then I am not. Anyway, your father is the third Hokage, and you are the boss here. Asuma was so angry that his face turned black and red. He hated others talking about his identity the most, which was also the main reason why he always quarreled with his father. Rebellious period, everyone will experience it, and Asuma is no exception. Asuma roared, "You scum, I'm going to beat you up," but before he rushed forward, he was quickly stopped by Shiranu Genma and Yuhi Kurne. Are you kidding? The other party is a special Jonin after all. How can they, a Fusionan, be opponents? Are they going to be beaten? Shiranu Genma blocked Asuma while staring at Shikato. If I remember correctly, our mission this time should be a support mission. Is it really okay to be so lazy? Shikato looked at the sky and estimated that there was still some time, so he kindly explained, you don't really think that you three Jinan can play a decisive role? Why are you so excited? To put it bluntly, you Jinan are just cannon fodder to consume the opponent's chakra on the battlefield. This should not be an overestimation. X3 Shikato didn't say anything else. He just thought in his heart, besides, the third Hokage probably doesn't want his son to rush to the front line of the battlefield too persistently. Being a little lazy and delaying time is probably what he wants. Otherwise, he wouldn't have assigned Asuma to me. He knew my work and rest habits, but he still did this. He really worried about his son. Otherwise, I'll be diligent for once. Forget it. Health preservation is important. I should prepare a thermos cup later. It's one of the 3 standard health preservation items. The dear man didn't care about Asuma and the other two's reaction. He disappeared in an instant and returned to the camp to follow his regular work and rest on time. Chapter 5 Ambush. The next morning, before dawn, Shikato was already waiting at the gathering place. He had prepared things like Hyogen, Kyune, Shuriken, and Senbon. Not long after he arrived, Asuma, Shiranu Genma, and Yuhi Kurne also arrived one after another. Of course, there were also 2 elite ANBU Jonin who were secretly protecting them. Except for Shikato, who was full of energy, everyone else was a little listless. Shikato really set the gathering time too early. It was still dark, and the roosters were just starting to crow. In addition to the drastic changes in emotions yesterday, everyone was a little angry. At the same time, it was the first time to carry out such a high-level mission, so they all went to bed very late and almost overslept in the morning. To be honest, they really couldn't understand Shikato. He had gone to bed early before it got dark last night, and he didn't seem to care about the mission at all. But he was so active before dawn in the morning, which was really weird. Seeing that everyone was present, Shikato said, well, everyone is here, let's go. Shiranu Genma was stunned for a moment. Before we set off, don't we need to introduce each other's ninjutsu or something? Otherwise, it will be difficult to cooperate, right? Cooperation? What are you thinking about? Shikato looked back at him strangely. Just do whatever you want, don't worry about me. If you encounter any trouble, just take care of yourself, and it doesn't matter if you abandon me. Shiranu Genma frowned. Yuhi Kurne looked at them and saw a hint of worry in each other's eyes. This special Jonin was a little too unreliable. This frontline support mission should have been an S-level mission with greater risks. But in fact, Shikato led the 3-man team through the forest and the stream, and did not encounter any dangerous obstacles at all. Because when they came to support, many teams had already come to support in advance. Not only the front line, but also some Jonin teams came to the canopy bridge. These teams distracted the attention of the rock ninja troops of the Land of Earth, so that Shikato and his team had almost no obstacles and had already approached the border between the Land of Grass and the Land of Earth. After traveling all the way here, the group slowed down. The canopy bridge is located within the border of the Land of Earth. It is the only external bridge to the south of the Land of Earth. Most of the other directions are surrounded by mountains, and entry and exit are quite cumbersome. If there is no canopy bridge, just sending troops to the south will drag down the economy of the Land of Earth step by step. And Naimake's Minato's mission is to blow up this key bridge and block the Land of Earth again. It is inevitable that the process is a bit easy along the way, and it is really not an S-level mission. Asuma was already somewhat pleased with himself. What? We are almost around the canopy bridge, and we haven't encountered any decent obstacles. It's very easy. The rock ninjas seem to be just so-so. Why don't I let this grandpa take charge of the task of canopy bridge this time? Shiranyu Genma complained with a senbon in his mouth. You are bragging. You were almost scared to death when you encountered the sneak attack of the rock ninjas before, and it was the captain who helped you. Asuma blushed. That was just the first time. I'm used to it now. Next time I will be invincible. Also, I was just distracted, not scared. Yuhi covered her mouth and laughed twice, and secretly glanced at the deer man who was walking silently in front of her. Along the way, the team also encountered 2 ambushes, but there was really no risk. One time was a Chunin and 2 Jinan, and the other time was 3 Jinan. It is estimated that they were all defense lines set up by the rock ninjas in the nearby area. They were all ninjas born in an emergency during the war, and their actual level was very average. Even without the deer man taking action, the 3 Shiranyu Genma would be enough to deal with the other party. However, the deer man needs to remind them, otherwise it is still risky to fall into passive position. The deer man jumped in the forest, his black braids flying, and he looked quite handsome from behind. Yuhi was distracted for a moment. Suddenly, he heard the deer man in front of him shouting, "Disperse!" At the same time, the deer man suddenly stopped on a tree branch. Dense Kune, thousands of shurikens and shuriken shot from all directions of the jungle. Fortunately, the deer man shouted back Yuhi and the other 3 in advance, and all these shurikens shot at the deer man, covering the sky and shooting. Yuhi and others hiding behind the tree stump immediately became nervous. Bang! The deer man's figure was pierced into not by countless shurikens, but the next second it turned into a cloud of smoke and turned into a stump. Substitution technique. The deer man hid behind a leaf and waved his hand again to several hidden corners behind, signaling them to continue retreating. There were several auras just exposed around him, and they were all strong. It was a bit tricky. It wasn't that he couldn't handle it, but he had to take care of Asuma and the other 3. However, with the 2 elite ANBU following him, it shouldn't be a big problem. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt something moving underground. Huge brown earth spears broke out of the ground, destroying a large area of jungle in an instant. The deer man stepped on the tree trunk and jumped up to avoid the indiscriminate attack of an earth spear. A black shadow flashed from the side and back. I got you. Earth escape. Rock fist technique. The huge fist included dark brown rocks, forming a fist as strong as a wellhead, smashing down in the air. The deer man raised his hand to protect his cheek, and the armed color domineering was covered. Bang! Under the huge impact, the whole person fell suddenly. Then he fell in the air, but suddenly turned his head, and a dark earth dragon in the distance seemed to be roaring and coming. The deer man had no room to dodge at all. He was instantly bitten by the earth dragon and kept crashing into the tree stumps and earth spears behind him. He finally stopped after being knocked out for more than 100 meters. Let's deal with the most troublesome one. A group of Iwagakure ninjas walked out of the jungle. 2 Iwagakure Jonins also walked out from the other 2 corners. The elite team of 3 Jonins officially appeared. Not to mention Yuhi and his 3 companions, even Aburim Showa and Inazuka Jua, who were secretly protecting Asuma, were a little surprised. They were all Jonins, so it was no wonder that they could easily perform earth escape just now. Wang Tu's eyes were fixed on the 2 elite ANBU not far from Asuma, and he said to his companions, "Be careful. This group of people is not simple. If the information is correct, the boy should be the youngest son of the Sandaime Hokage." Sho stood on Wang Tu's right side and turned to look at Dashi on the left. "Are you sure your perception is not disordered? The 2 ANBU people over there look much more difficult than the leader." Dashi shook his head. From the chakra amount alone, the special Jonin leading the team is indeed average, but in my perception, that guy is as dangerous as a monster. It's really strange. At this time, Asuma, Yuhi Kurenai, and Shiranu Genma were already numb. Originally, they were a little proud and careless, but after seeing the scale of Earth escape ninjutsu, especially after the captain of the team was unknown, they suddenly felt a little scared and worried. Especially the three rock ninjas in the distance, they were talking casually, but they weren't always locking their eyes on this place. That intense sense of crisis always enveloped their hearts. The air seemed to be solidified, which made the three genins dare not move at all. Chapter 6 Self-Destruction. Facing three Iwagakure genins, they were elite ninjas, not ninjas born out of war. Not to mention that Asuma and his men were so scared that they couldn't move. Even Aburim Shiwai and Inuzuka had a great sense of crisis. The chakras exposed by these three Iwagakure ninjas were quite fierce and full of momentum. Wang Tu, the son of the third generation Tsuchika Jinoki of Iwagakure village, is a very solid and steady Iwagakure ninja with an extremely outstanding earth escape talent. Kari, the captain of the Iwagakure village's blasting unit, is powerful and has a bloodline limit explosion escape. Oishi, a rare perception type Jonin in Iwagakure village, is said to have few people who can escape his perception, and is even said to have a perception ability comparable to the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. These three Jonins should appear on the front battlefield no matter how you look at it. After all, each of them can be called an elite ninja who can stand on his own. But now they are gathered together and ambushed on the road leading to the Canopy Bridge. This is not a simple matter. Aburim Shiwai lifted his hood and said calmly to Inuzuka Jade on the side, "You take Asuma and the other three to retreat first. I will stop them." Inuzuka Jade shook his head. "No, I can't stop them. The guy with the explosive escape technique over there is too restrained for you. You can't be alone again." When the deer man was attacked, the two did not take action at the first moment, but were alert to the surroundings and protected Asuma's side, making the deer man's condition unknown. This choice has already put their situation at a disadvantage. If they act separately again, and only one person, Inuzuka Jade will have no problem escaping, but he will also have to protect the son of the Hokage and the others, so he may not be able to escape far. Instead of that, it is better to stay and fight the enemy together. As for Asuma and the others, it depends on luck. After all, it is not the Hokage, so it is better to let go and give it a try to have a better chance than to let them risk their lives just to gamble on that insignificant escape rate. Inuzuka Jab first looked back at Asuma and the other two, and calmly said, "If you can, hold on as long as possible." Asuma and the other two were stunned. What did they mean by hold on for a while? Originally, when two Konoha ANBU appeared, they had regained some vitality and felt that there was still a chance. But when they heard this, they felt like they were falling into an ice cave. "Shouldn't you buy time for us? How come it seems to be the other way around?" But the two ANBU members were very cold and had no intention of explaining to them. The three looked at each other, and finally couldn't help but cheer each other up, and finally calmed down. At this time, the battle between Aburim Shiwai and Inuzuka Jab had already started. They picked out Wang Tu and Sho, the most difficult of the three rock ninja Jonins, respectively, which was also a disguised way to reduce some pressure on Asuma and the other two. Oishi did not choose to join the battle. From the beginning, their purpose was very simple, to capture the son of the third Hokage and improve their negotiating conditions. In order to prevent accidents, of course, it is better to fight quickly. Wang Tu and the others held back the ANBU people, so I will end the battle quickly. After Asuma and the other two calmed down, they immediately dispersed in a triangle formation. In the jungle, Shiranu Genma suddenly spit out the senbon in his mouth. Oishi's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. In the sky, Asuma's dynamic vision was better, so he immediately reminded him and swung out two shurikens at the same time, with detonating tags attached to the hilts. The violent explosion shattered a large area of branches and leaves. Asuma subconsciously surprised himself. Did he succeed? This surprise did not last long, and he was shocked by a chuckle in his ear. "I succeeded." Oishi appeared behind Asuma. Even if he is the son of the Hokage, it seems that he is not necessarily very talented. Asuma, not far away, Yuhi Kurenai was startled and suddenly launched the illusion that she had prepared for a long time. Illusion, tree binding technique. The surrounding environment suddenly began to rotate and change, and vines grew one by one. Oishi raised his eyebrows, and the chakra in his body surged out. This abnormal sense returned to normal in just a moment. At the same time, Shiranugenma's Konoha whirlwind had swept across the front of his face. Oishi raised his hand to grab Shiranugenma's ankle and kicked Tsunade, who rushed over and flew away. Shiranugenma was thrown away, and Asuma was left alone again before he even had time to resist. The three of them were instantly distracted. The suppression power displayed by Oishi was too strong. The speed was fast, the illusion was ineffective, and the ninjutsu could not hit. This made the three fledglings in all despair. Facing Oishi's big hand reaching out to him, Asuma even trembled a little. However, Oishi's movement stopped abruptly, and he looked down at his feet with some difficulty. A black shadow stretched out from his own shadow, bypassing the shade of the tree, and extended to the back of the tree stump. A black kunai was nailed on it, like a kunai entity condensed from the shadow. Dashi's face changed, and he immediately shouted, "Be careful, that special Jonin is still alive." The debris in the distance exploded several times, and the deer man jumped out. He patted the dirt and wood chips on his body, and rushed over in a few jumps. Holding a kunai in his hand, he walked towards Dashi, who was nailed by the shadow and could not move. He was ready to capture the other party alive. After all, the person who ambushed this time was a little too strange. Dashi's face turned pale, and he struggled several times in a row, but he still couldn't break free from the shadow's restraint. He was afraid that he would not be able to resist in a short time. When the deer man got closer and closer, Dashi's eyes flashed with a fierce look. The deer man sensed that something was wrong, raised his eyebrows, and the shadow under his feet shot in three directions at a high speed, pulling up Asuma, Shiranugenma, and Yuhi-kun and throwing them backwards. At the same time, Dashi's abdomen bulged, and then the dazzling explosion wave with Dashi as the center suddenly exploded in all directions. Boom! The deafening sound of the wave was as terrifying as thunder. Asuma and his companions got up in a panic. All of them looked at the deep pit with pale faces. Originally, when Shikato suddenly appeared and subdued the other Jonin in an instant, they were still surprised to have escaped death, but now they were all deafened by the terrifying explosion. Hitui. Not far away. Shikato stood up from the ruins of broken soil and wood, spit out the slag, and smacked his lips and said, "Does he have a special explosion scroll hidden on his body?" Seeing that the opportunity is not right, he would rather blow himself up on the spot than be captured. This awareness is really scary. The top-level armed color domineering caused him to only receive some shock waves, and the whole person only looked embarrassed, but there was no scar on his body. But this is only for Shikato. If it were another Jonin, it would be very difficult to save Asuma and the other two at such a close distance, let alone to be intact. This rock ninja not only had detonating tags hidden on him, but also had a scroll of detonating ninjutsu unique to the demolition core, which was specially used for mutual destruction. This guy must have a lot of secrets hidden on him, and there must be no possibility of him being captured alive. What a pity. Asuma and the other two looked at each other quietly, and then looked at Dearman's expression again, which was already full of longing. So strong. From the beginning to now, this person can't see any injuries at all. Is he made of iron? Dearman made seals with both hands. Bang! A shadow clone appeared on the side. Then he said to Asuma and the other two, "You guys take a rest first, my clone will help you to be alert, I'll go over there and take a look." After that, without waiting for Asuma and the others to answer, the man had disappeared on the spot. Chapter 7 Hunting and Sacrifice. Wangtu and Aburim Shuai, Inuzuka Jabankari. The battle between the two sides has entered a white-hot stage, and the scope of the battle has also been pulled apart. Because some ninjutsu can complement each other, and the effect of 1 + 1 is greater than 2, such as Ino Shikajo. But most ninjutsu do not have such an obvious improvement effect. Some will even restrain each other, and it is better to fight separately than to cooperate with each other. Both sides have this idea, so naturally they are divided into multiple battlefields. Of course, this also gave the hidden Dearman an opportunity to give Oishi a fatal blow. At this time, from a distance, the two battlefields are very obvious. On one side, the dark sea of insects covered the sky, and on the other side, there were constant deafening explosions, and the ground shaking under his feet continued to invade. Dearman rushed over quickly, and the first enemy he encountered was the elite Jonin carry of the Rock Ninja. At this time, Inuzuka Jab had merged with his beloved dog and became a huge three-headed wolf like a hill. Crystal saliva kept dripping from the wolf's head, and it looked ferocious. However, The wolf was covered in blood and one of its legs was even broken. On the other side, the rock ninja Jonin Sho was also standing in the back in a rather embarrassed state. A large piece of flesh was missing from his left hand, and even bones could be seen exposed from the wound. Sho looked at Shikato with a serious expression. From the time he heard Oishi's reminder to the time he rushed over, it was only a little over 2 minutes. Adding the huge explosion, this special Jonin who appeared in front of him was definitely not ordinary. Inuzuka was somewhat surprised by Shikato's appearance and warned him, "Be careful, this guy can bury a blasting ninjutsu that is about 3 times stronger than a detonation talisman just by touching it. It can also indirectly detonate the surrounding environment. Don't stay in the same place for more than 3 seconds." Shikato nodded. "You will take the lead, Inuzuka? Okay, you act according to the situation and strive to make a quick decision. Go to help Aburim Shiwai." Inuzuka seemed very anxious, and the 3 wolves immediately launched an attack. Fangling Fang. The ground collapsed with a bang, and the 3 wolves jumped into the air, then spun faster and faster, forming an extremely fierce shock wave, heading straight for Sho. The impact of the Jiraiya was not only fierce, but also fast, with a higher rotation speed and strong destructive power. Sho clapped his hands. Earth escape, earth flow wall. The ground shook, and a huge earth wall suddenly rose up, blocking Sho's front. But this earth wall only lasted for less than a second before it was shattered by the shock wave. But this second was enough. Explosion escape, landmine fist. Boom. A huge explosion sounded throughout the jungle, and the whirlwind impact of the Jiraiya was bounced off by the explosion, and suddenly plowed a huge gully on the ground, and then bounced again, heading straight for Sho again. In the air, there were spots of blood. Sho jumped up and avoided it again. When he was in the air, 3 or 4 shurikens flew over. Sho pulled out his kunai and shot down the shuriken sharply. But the huge shock wave of the Fang Langai had already rushed to his eyes. Sho quickly formed a seal. Earth escape, earth spear. Sho's abdomen was blackened in a large area, and the fierce shock wave of the Fang Langai hit it, pushing Sho out, but he successfully resisted the damage. While flying backwards, Sho also noticed very keenly that there was a black thin line on the ground like a long snake, chasing him at high speed. Sho quickly released the hardened state of the earth spear, supported the ground with one hand, turned over and jumped, avoiding the pursuit of the black line. At the same time, when his hand touched the ground, the explosive escape was activated. When the deer man performed the shadow secret technique, he noticed that there was a wave coming from the ground under his feet, and then the ground began to bulge rapidly, but he did not choose to dodge. Sometimes, being hit can paralyze the opponent more than dodging. Boom. The ground under his feet suddenly exploded. The deer man was blown upside down. Sho's eyes flashed with joy. He succeeded. But soon, the joy in his eyes turned into surprise. The whole person turned his head with incredible difficulty. All he saw was a thin black line behind him that gradually widened and eventually formed a dark shadow-like mark. On the other side of the winding black shadow, there was a slender black thousand nails nailed to the ground. It's over. Just as this thought flashed through Sho's mind, the terrifying impact of Jiraiya came again. This time Sho was unable to perform any defensive ninjutsu. He was torn into 2 halves by Jiraiya, and blood was spilled on the spot. Bang! The 3 wolves fell to the ground and turned into a cloud of thick smoke. Finally, as the smoke and dust dispersed, Inuzuka and his beloved dog appeared there. Only his right leg was broken, but the real horror was a fatal wound as big as a baby's fist, located in the abdomen. Judging from the shape, it was unfortunately pierced by a stone. The location of the wound was very bad, and I'm afraid the internal organs were also severely damaged. It was rare for him to persist in fighting until now. Inuzuka's beloved dog was licking the wound for his master sadly. Shikato rushed over and took a look. I have been learning medical ninjutsu for a while. If you trust me, I can try. Blood oozed from the corner of Inuzuka's mouth. He shook his head, endured the injury, and said weakly, don't waste chakra. I know my own injuries very well. The lung lobe was pierced. Unless Lady Tsunade is here, I can't hold on in this situation. Go help Aburim Shiwai. After saying that, he chose to lie on the ground again and die peacefully. Shikato really couldn't do anything about this kind of injury. He could only alleviate the other party's pain. But since Inuzuka said so, he didn't say much, turned around and prepared to help Aburim Shiwai. At this time, Inuzuka's extremely weak voice came again from the back, hey, You look good, but it's a pity that I know it a little late. Shikato paused, said nothing and continued to leave. Inuzuka closed his eyes. If I had met him earlier, I could have introduced my daughter to him. He is not as bad as the rumors say. Then he stretched out his hand and stroked his beloved dog with great effort. Go back, buddy, don't be sad, ninjas are like this. When Shikato rushed to Aburame again, Aburame was lying on the ground gasping for breath. The surroundings were full of insect debris, the ground was bumpy, and the jungle was severely damaged. Aburame raised his eyelids and glanced at the person who came. You are fine after all. Shikato raised his eyebrows. Aburame said calmly, my insects told me that you are a dangerous guy. I think you shouldn't sacrifice yourself so easily. Shikato looked around curiously, but did not see who on to. Aburame explained, he escaped, but to be more precise, he chose to leave when he was about to defeat me. I was a little confused at first, but after meeting you, I understood more or less. Have the other two rock ninjas been dealt with? Shikato nodded, yes, but your colleague also died due to serious injuries. Aburame looked a little expressionless under the cover of sunglasses. Really? What a pity. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Namake's Minato. Glancing at Aburame on the ground, Shikato asked, how are you? Not bad, but the bugs and chakra are all consumed quite a bit, Aburame replied, and then the scene fell into silence again. Shikato turned his head and looked into the distance. Shadow clones had already rushed over with Asuma and the other two. The general situation was almost understood, and the few people were somewhat depressed. Although they dealt with two attacking rock ninjas, one of them was also sacrificed, and this battle was a big blow to the three Jinan. Their performance cannot be said to be bad. Looking at the whole process, they can only be said to be three burdens. Shikato decided to comfort Asuma. Don't be disappointed. Asuma and the other two looked at Shikato Nara. Shikato continued calmly, after all, if it weren't for you, they wouldn't have gathered here to ambush us. So you're still very important, Asuma. A world where only Asuma was injured was formed. Shiranyugenma and Yuhikirnai were somewhat relieved. Aburame on the ground sat up and looked at Shikato. This kid has a really poisonous mouth. Shikato dispersed his shadow clones, and then continued, however, to be able to have three elite Jonins like these go out together, and to ambush and intercept us in advance, it seems that some information about us must have been leaked. Judging from the situation, their target should be you. However, they are not well prepared and acted in a hurry, so this information should have just been obtained, and there are still some uncertainties, Shikato roughly explained his inference, and then his eyes fell on Asuma again. After all, he is the son of the Hokage. Although his strength is not as good as that of the Tsuchikage's son, his importance may be comparable. Asuma was hit again. If he hadn't been saved by Shikato this time, he would have been furious. What Asuma hates most is that someone has implicated him with the identity of the son of the Hokage. This person has said this more than once. Although Aburame was curious about how Shikato blocked several consecutive attacks, whether it was the Earth Dragon Bullet technique, the Landmine Fist, or the Rock Fist technique. No matter which one, it doesn't seem like he can block it by force with his body. But this matter involves secret techniques after all, so he can't ask too much? So Aburame said, what are you going to do next? Shikato is the nominal captain, and he is just an ANBU who secretly protects Asuma. The mission action still depends on the captain. Shikato didn't hesitate, go on, since we are supporting the Namake's Minato team, let's go over and take a look. But in order to avoid being ambushed again, change the route of action. It feels like someone from our own betrayed us. We can't be anxious next time, and be more hidden. Aburame glanced at him. In the current situation, we can actually give up the mission. After all, the relevant information has been leaked, and it will be more dangerous to continue the action. According to the regulations, we can choose to give up. Shikato, okay, then give up the mission. Listen to you. Aburame was stunned. Did it change so quickly? I just made a suggestion. Asuma and his friends wanted to go back. After all, they were shocked this time, and their own information was leaked. They didn't know what kind of enemies were waiting for them on the road ahead. The three Jinan were a little nervous when they experienced this for the first time. But they didn't dare to say it. Instead, Shikato said it without any psychological pressure. Shikato glanced at the others. To be honest, I didn't think it was necessary to do this support mission. Why? Aburim looked over. I believe in Minato Namikaze. After all, he is the man known as the Yellow Flash. Even the 3-second real man couldn't be faster than Minato Namikaze. As long as Kushina didn't mind, Minato Namikaze could be even faster. To be honest, that guy's space-time ninjutsu, at present, is still a bit unsolvable. The only flaw is that his attack methods are relatively scarce. One Rasengan is somewhat not enough. But if he wants to escape, I'm afraid no one can stop him. Shikato's words showed his unparalleled confidence in Minato Namikaze. But after he finished speaking, he suddenly frowned and looked in a direction farther away. There was a blond man standing there at some point, appearing extremely abruptly. He was wearing a Konoha Forward Protector and Konoha Standard Ninja vests. He was in good condition, but looked a little lost. Beside him was a boy and a girl, both of whom were Konoha ninjas around 12 years old. One was a handsome boy with silver hair, and the other was a pretty girl with brown hair over her ears. The blonde ninja came over and said at the same time, "I'm not as good as you say." Asuma and the other two immediately recognized each other and said with admiration, "Lord Minato." The name of Minato Namikaze has become more and more exaggerated during this period. Even the Rock Ninja has issued an order that if they meet Minato Namikaze, they can unconditionally give up the mission. It's really outrageous. Minato Namikaze nodded to them, and then his eyes fell on Shikato. "I heard Shikaku mention your name, saying that you are the most talented member of the Nara clan in history." As soon as he finished speaking, Asuma and the others couldn't help but look over again. If they had only heard that Nara Shikato was a genius before, they would not have cared much. After all, who is not a genius? But it was a bit exaggerated that the Nara clan had the highest talent in history. After all, the Nara clan was one of the main mystical families in Konoha, and it was also a large clan. Such a high evaluation came from the mouth of the current head of the Nara clan, so you can imagine how talented he was. Shikato just smiled and said, "Brother, you are used to bragging. My talent is only a little bit higher than his." X7 At this time, Aburim Shuai suddenly said, "Minato, since you are here, then." Namikaze Minato nodded. "The mission is accomplished. The canopy bridge has been blown up." Hearing this, Aburim Shuai and others were all happy. The canopy bridge was the main bridge supporting the land of the earth to march into Konoha. If it was blown up, it would be even more difficult to take the initiative to attack the land of the earth, surrounded by mountains. Of course, the terrain of the land of the earth is there, and it is not easy to attack. But similarly, it is not easy to invade there. Without the canopy bridge to support the transportation of logistics troops, this war with the land of earth would undoubtedly have a great advantage. Aburim Shuai noticed Minato's expression keenly. "What's wrong?" Namikaze Minato smiled with difficulty. "Obito, one of my 3 disciples, died." Shikato raised his eyelids. Madara-sama took action. Then he glanced at the silver-haired boy beside him. The face cloth that was originally hanging on his cheek had been pulled up and covered his left eye. "Sharingan?" Shikato was thoughtful. Kakashi had always been a little depressed. After feeling that someone was looking at him, he looked up at the other person, and then lowered his head again. Namikaze Minato patted Kakashi's head, then looked at Shikato. "What's wrong?" "Shikato." When Shikato heard this name, he turned and looked at him strangely. "You are a little too familiar with him." Then he shook his head. "Nothing, just a little curious about the 12-year-old Jonin." Chapter 9 Nara Salt Pond. 12-year-old Jonin? Shikato's words made Asuma and his friends of the same age discover Kakashi. They were busy admiring the yellow flash before. As someone else's child, Kakashi was always heard from his own parents, and was mostly used to spur themselves. They knew each other in ninja school, but they didn't have much interaction. After all, the other party graduated too quickly. When they were just Jonin and lacked combat experience, a 12-year-old Jonin suddenly appeared among their peers. The shock of this matter can be imagined. However, this praise may be a compliment to others. But for Kakashi, it was as painful as a knife. What is called a 12-year-old Jonin, but it turns out to be just an empty shell, unable to even protect his companions. What's the use of such a broken reputation? He is just a special ninja born in the war period. Kakashi's mood became more and more depressed. Namikaze Minato rubbed Kakashi's hair and said to Shikato, This kid just lost his partner. Please understand, Shikato didn't say anything. Although he was only 3 or 4 years older than Kakashi and the others, his advantage of precocity made him look like a young ninja and much more mature. The two sides exchanged information with each other later. On Namake's Minato's side, in addition to the 3 of them, 2 of the other 3 teams that rushed to support in advance were wiped out at the Canopy Bridge, and one team had only one senior ninja left, but he was also seriously injured and was sent back to the camp by Namake's Minato in advance. Space-time ninjutsu is really convenient. Minato frowned after hearing about the sacrifice of Inuzuka Jade. He and Inuzuka Jade had a very good relationship. The other party treated him like a brother. The sacrifice of Inuzuka Jade made Minato even more sad. However, he quickly gathered his thoughts and said, "Do you need me to take you back, hitchhiking?" Shikato nodded of course. He also wanted to experience the peculiarity of space-time ninjutsu. However, Minato can only take 2 people at a time, so he needs to go back and forth several times. Shikato is the last wave, and he is with a Burame Shui. Namake's Minato put his hands on the shoulders of the 2. Then the Flying Thunder God technique was activated. Swish! The scene changed, and the 3 people appeared in the Konoha camp. Shikato felt that his vision changed from clear to blurry in an instant, and then from blurry to clear in an instant. The sudden change and the confused sense of direction made him dazed for a moment. It is hard to imagine how Namake's Minato adapted to this extremely high-speed shuttle movement. The 5 senses cannot be synchronized at all, and the sense of confusion is very strong. Shikato recovered a little, looked up and looked around, but happened to meet a pair of brown eyes. Golden twin ponytails, fair skin, very beautiful, and a curvy figure, especially the arched part, which can be called majestic. "See you again, Tsunade." In the meeting room, Tsunade was originally listening to the detailed introduction of the recent situation on the battlefield casually, and occasionally blinked her eyelids, seeming to be a little sleepy. Until a certain moment, Namake's Minato suddenly came to the conference room with 2 people. The conference room was built with Earth Escape ninjutsu, and the interior was quite spacious. In addition to Tsunade, there was also one of the leaders of the major family forces on the front line of the land of Earth. At this time, the focus was on discussing the next plan to deal with the enemy. As the highest commander of the camp here, Jiraiya, one of the 3 ninjas, was sitting on one side. Namake's Minato appeared next to Jiraiya, and he left the mark of Flying Thunder God next to Jiraiya's teacher. When he came back, he immediately said, "Teacher, wait a moment, I'll be back soon." Then, without waiting for others to ask, he disappeared. A few seconds later, 2 more people appeared. The conference room suddenly became a little strange. Until the end, when Burame Shui and Nara Shikato also appeared here, Namake's Minato finally stopped. Seeing that others were staring at him with curiosity, he said awkwardly, "Well, hello everyone." Everyone else was staring at Namake's Minato, and the only 2 people present were staring at Nara Shikato. One was Nara Saltpond, the elder of the Nara clan, and the other was Princess Tsunade, who was called a waste by Shikato. Tsunade stared at Shikato with wide eyes. Why did this brat suddenly appear here? Wasn't he in the logistics camp of the Thunder Country battlefield? Shikato didn't care much. He just took a ride and felt the Flying Thunder God technique by the way. He didn't bother to care about other people's thoughts. He felt that it was getting late now. After washing and eating something, it was almost time to take care of his health, so he said directly, "My mission should be completed. I will go back first if there is nothing for me to do." When he said he was going back, he actually just found a place to sleep in a nearby camp and wait for the next mission arrangement. After all, it was wartime, and it was impossible to leave the battlefield without orders. "Wait, Shikato, stop right there." The 2 voices sounded almost at the same time. Elder Nara Saltpond looked at Princess Tsunade, who also stood up with some surprise, and didn't understand when Lady Tsunade knew Shikato. Dearman was a little confused. "Is there something wrong?" Nara Yanshi walked over and knocked the brat's head hard, then covered his hand and took a breath of cold air. It was indeed a familiar feeling. The joy of the world is different, so the pain is also different. Looking at the calm look of Dearman, Nara Yanshi put his hands behind his back and kept rubbing his fingers secretly. At the same time, he scolded, "Lu Ren, you are not young anymore, you should understand the rules. You are not allowed to run away without saying anything. At least explain the mission." Lu Ren didn't say anything, just glanced at his hands behind his back, Does your hand hurt? Nara glared at him angrily. It doesn't hurt, hiss. Lu Ren complained. Don't be arrogant at your age. It's not the first time. I can't feel whether it hurts or not, but you must be in pain. You have almost sucked up all the cold air in the ninja world. If this were in the snow country, you might have melted the snow-capped mountains. Maybe the Otsutsuki would have sucked you awake in advance. Bang. Hiss. This damn muscle memory. What nonsense are you talking about? Nara retracted his hand, quickly turned his back, hugged his red hand, blushed and grimaced in pain, but always suppressed it and didn't make a sound. I don't know how this brat grew up. His head has been as hard as a rock since he was a child. No, even a rock is not that hard. Ho ha ho ha. Not far away, Tsunade, who was a little sleepy, couldn't help but burst into laughter. This old man and young are so funny. Tsunade's laughter attracted everyone in the conference room. Then they all looked at the Nara salt pond and Nara deerman at the door. Chapter 10 Tsunade. Jiraiya had naturally seen Nara Shikato a long time ago, but his first impression of Nara Shikato was not good. So much so that he always ignored Nara Shikato after meeting him several times. Shikato saw the gazes from all around and said to his elders, I have explained everything to Namokaze Minato, let him tell you. It's getting late, the sun is about to set, when else should we sleep? Nara Shikato raised his hand again, and then the pain made him withdraw it in a second, and he almost made a fool of himself again. This brat has been going to bed and getting up early every day for several years, and his work and rest schedule is a mess. Those who dared to disturb him in the middle of the night have been beaten by him, otherwise his reputation as a genius would not have spread so quickly. However, after all, there is not only the Nara family in the meeting room, but also many esoteric families, as well as Uchiha and Hyuga, one of the bloodline families. Compared with the esoteric families, Uchiha and Hyuga are the largest family forces in Konoha's current faction. The Uchiha clan is proud, and the Hyuga clan is cold. Seeing Shikato's perfunctory attitude, Uchiha Yashiro slammed the table. Enough. Nara Shikato, straighten your attitude. Shikato nodded perfunctorily. Okay, I'll straighten it, I'll straighten it. Uchiha Yashiro's face turned black with anger. On the other side, Hyuga Emiki stared with a pair of white pupils. Bad ninjas are bad ninjas, they don't know any rules. Nara didn't care about Uchiha Yashiro's words. But Hyuga Amiki's accusation made him a little angry. Elder Hyuga, don't make rash judgments about some things that you haven't seen with your own eyes. Hyuga Emiki taunted coldly. What? Do you suspect that Master Jiraiya framed him? Jiraiya sat aside and was a little distressed. Why did he get dragged into it again? The members of other occult families were somewhat embarrassed at this time. After all, the Nara clan was still very popular in the village. Nara was also a little angry. You? Shikato held him and said, Elder, I didn't say anything, why are you angry? Whatever he said is fine, it can't hurt me anyway. Whether it's bad behavior or ignorance of the rules, they have their mouths on them, so let them say whatever they want. Nara was also very troubled by this kid. He was extremely talented and too precocious. Although he was young, his mentality was surprisingly good. He was worried that these public opinions would hurt him, but he comforted him instead. Shikato waved his hand. That's it, you have said it, then I can leave. After that, he looked at Jiraiya and Tsunade, one of the highest leaders here. Jiraiya waved his hand with a headache, not wanting to make the atmosphere awkward. Anyway, Minato had already signaled to him. Tsunade frowned, feeling the gunpowder smell towards Shikato in the entire meeting room. Seeing that the two did not object, Shikato turned around and was about to leave. At this time, Hyuga Shianmu chased after him and ridiculed him. Come as you want, leave as you want, this is not ignorance of the rules. This time, Lu Ren did not indulge him, and turned around. Yes, I don't know the rules. Then, Lord Hyuga, if you have the guts, stop me. When the voice fell, there was no need to make a seal at all, and the shadow under his feet was dancing freely like a chaotic blade. This scene made Nara eyes light up. He can use the family secret technique without making a seal? This kid is really the top genius. Hyuga Shianmu was provoked so nakedly by a junior, how could he bear it, and slapped his palm on the table, and the blue veins at the corners of his eyes jumped up, and the pressure of the white eyes was full. But before he could get angry, he was stopped by other people around him. Shianmu, why are you fussing with a kid? Elder Shianmu, the other party is just a 15 or 16-year-old child. Don't take it too seriously. Yes, Shianmu, we are all ninjas of Konoha. There is no need to be angry. With so many people trying to dissuade him, Hyuga Shianmu naturally couldn't say anything, but just sat down again angrily. Shikato saw that he had nothing to do with it, so he decisively used the instant body technique to leave. The atmosphere in the conference room was a little frozen. So much so that Kakashi and Asuma, who were following Minato Namikaze, all swallowed their saliva involuntarily. I really admire Shikato for being able to remain calm in that situation just now, and even confront others. If it were them, they would probably be nervous to death, not to mention confronting each other. They would stutter every time they said a word. Tsunade rubbed her eyebrows, and she was also a little worried about the boy. His temper was too direct. She glanced at Jiraiya and said, "You host it. I'm just a decoration anyway. I'll go out for a walk." Jiraiya was only halfway through his words. "Hey, Tsunade, swish." Tsunade had already left her seat and disappeared into the meeting room. Jiraiya scratched his head, a little distressed. Why does Tsunade care so much about that kid? Isn't she trying to get the upper hand? It would be great if she could just eat my grass. I won't even resist. He quickly shook off his distracting thoughts and started talking with Minato Namikaze and the others. Outside the camp, before Shikato had walked far, Tsunade had already caught up with him. "Hey, wait, I'm not calling you hey, waste princess, scum, bang." Tsunade's head exploded when she caught up with him, and then, like Nara Salt Pond, she contributed to the warming of the entire ninja world. "You guy, can't you call me something else? Be a little more polite." Shikato shrugged. "I'm used to it." Tsunade was speechless by this answer. This habit is really excessive. However, the two of them did often quarrel with each other before. Although they get along more and more harmoniously, they still like to quarrel with each other in daily address. Tsunade stood beside him and looked up at Shikato. It seemed that he had grown taller after not seeing him for a while. She walked a few steps with him and suddenly said, "Hey, scumbag, come to my room later." Shikato looked up at her. "You make it very difficult for me, Tsunade." Shikato, "Well, I don't really mind the cow eating grass, but if possible, can you change the time? I have to take care of my health at night, although it may have a bad effect during the day. But as long as you don't mind, I don't mind." Tsunade was stunned at first, then her fair cheeks turned red visibly, and finally her head collapsed in anger. There was no mercy this time. So she decisively squatted down with her hands folded. Tears were about to overflow from the corners of her eyes due to the pain. She raised her eyes and said, "Is your head made of stone?" The dear man didn't respond and just said, "You can't even take a joke. Is that serious?" Tsunade's cheeks were still a little red. She stood up and folded her hands in front of her body, and said angrily, "Is that kind of thing something you can joke about?" Chapter 11 Precocious. Dearman waved his hand and walked away. "I don't mind. Why should you mind?" Tsunade was stunned, and then she yelled angrily, "Hey, be serious." Then she found that Dearman ignored her and walked further and further away, so she immediately flashed and chased him. "Don't forget to come to my place at night. I have something to ask you clearly." Dearman stopped. "I take care of my health at night. I'm not kidding. Can't you make an exception once?" "Make an exception? Why, for me, that can't be done." Tsunade gnashed her teeth in anger, and finally she couldn't do anything about him. "Then come to me the first time you get up tomorrow morning. That's no problem." After Dearman walked away, Tsunade breathed a sigh of relief. It feels more interesting to chat with this kid, although they always get into arguments while talking. But it is this kind of conversation atmosphere that makes it more relaxed and comfortable. There is no need to always intrigue, nor to care about anything messy, and there is no need to worry about who will be hurt by your words. The next day, after getting up, Shikato followed the agreement and went to Tsunade's camping accommodation as soon as possible. It was still dark outside, and the surrounding camps were quiet. There were ninjas in charge of alert and patrol who noticed Shikato, but they didn't care. But when Shikato walked towards Tsunade's room, the Konoha ninjas on alert nearby all widened their eyes. What is he doing? Then they saw Shikato walk into Tsunade's room openly. It was still dark outside, and most of the ninjas were still sleeping soundly. The patrolling and alert ninjas felt that they had discovered the truth of the matter. The lights in Tsunade's room were not on, and it was still dark. Tsunade was like a caterpillar, curled up in the quilt in her pajamas, and muttered in a daze, "You sit down first, I'll sleep for a while." She hadn't woken up at all. After Shikato left yesterday, she remembered that Shikato not only went to bed early, but also got up too early. But when he reacted, the dear man had disappeared, so he was too lazy to care about it. At most, he could just wait a little longer. After hearing this, the dear man looked around, but he didn't see any place to sit in the makeshift house. Tsunade is so lazy. The makeshift house built by Earth Escape is still the same as it was when it was built. Forget about making a seat. In the whole room, there is no place to cook except for sleeping and washing. Tsunade is a complete parasite. The dear man found a larger open space, took out 2 scrolls from his pocket, unrolled one, and pressed one hand on several places with the word seal. Bang bang bang. After 3 consecutive puffs of smoke exploded, a square table, a cushion, and a small oil stove appeared in place. As a health-conscious ninja, the pursuit of daily life is naturally indispensable. In addition to going to bed early and getting up early, the pursuit of food in daily life is not low. Especially before going to the battlefield, he specially used the money he saved to buy 2 simple sealing scrolls and sealed some outdoor living supplies. Sitting on the lazy cushion, he put away the scroll just now and unfolded another scroll. Bang, bang, bang. A few clouds of smoke burst out again: meat, vegetables, onions, ginger, and garlic. Add some other daily seasonings, and the key is a pot, a pair of bowls and chopsticks, and a bowl of instant noodles. Pour the boiled water into the instant noodles, and then start to show your cooking skills. Dear man's level is not very high, but he is used to taking care of himself, so naturally with a change of time, his cooking skills are getting better and better. Soon, the hot and fragrant aroma of vegetables rose in the simple room. Dear man sighed and took out a glass of sake. While waiting for Tsunade to wake up, he slowly enjoyed breakfast. But before the first bite was taken into his mouth, a ball of meat rolled over, the soup splashed everywhere, and Shikato did not dodge it. Because the distance was too close, his clothes were also stained with instant noodles, and the rich smell of instant noodles spread everywhere. Shikato's eyes jumped and he was a little angry. Tsunade also woke up from her confusion in an instant. Her fair face was full of soup, and the noodles were hanging on the bridge of her nose. But she quickly came back to her senses. Although she was half asleep and half awake before, she only took a quick glance around and roughly understood that her old illness had come back. The sequelae of the battlefield, the confusion caused by neurasthenia when waking up early. Then, without waiting for Shikato to get angry, he spoke first. "Scumbag, look at what you have done." Shikato was full of question marks. "How dare you say this?" But he was too lazy to argue with Tsunade about this. It happened that there was a washroom in her room, so he got up and went into the compartment directly. Tsunade opened the quilt and squeezed in her pajamas. "Wait, I'll wash my face first." To be honest, Tsunade's pajamas were not particularly well-fitting. After all, it was not easy to buy well-fitting pajamas. In addition, she ran in a hurry, so she was more or less exposed. Fortunately, Shikato was not that dirty. He was not Jiraiya, who liked to peek. He just started to take off his ninja uniform and some accessories. It would be fine if the clothes were dirty, but the main thing was that a lot of soup flowed down the collar onto his body, which was sticky and uncomfortable. Tsunade blushed. Wait, I'll be done soon." Shikato ignored her and continued to take off his clothes. Tsunade took a sneak peek and found that this boy had an excessively good figure, with marble-like abdominal muscles, elegant muscle lines, and his upright black braids spread out. In the originally sharp temperament, there was a touch of soft handsomeness. Dearman stood aside and teased, "Have you seen enough? Do you want to wait for me to take off my lower body? Or do you want to wash together?" Tsunade's face turned red, and she jumped up and down, then she covered her hands and hurried out. After leaving the bathroom, Tsunade rubbed her golden hair hard and whispered to herself, "What are you thinking about? How old is he? He's still a child? Damn, how can there be such a precocious brat?" Chapter 12 Current Crime. Shikato has several spare ninja uniforms. Although it was a little uncomfortable to wash in Tsunade's room, she didn't take it too seriously. On the contrary, Tsunade wiped her cheeks and glanced at the bathroom from time to time. The sound of the dripping water seemed to wash her heart, making her feel itchy and uncomfortable. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside the room, and Jiraiya said outside, "Tsunade, are you awake?" Tsunade, who was still a little flustered, heard Jiraiya's voice and was instantly like being splashed with a basin of cold water. The whole person shuddered. "Huh? Gee, Jiraiya, yes, it's me." Outside the door, Jiraiya was stunned. "I want to talk to you about something, I came in." "Ah, okay." Tsunade nodded subconsciously, and then suddenly remembered that Shikato was still changing in his room. In addition, the relationship between Jiraiya and Shikato didn't seem to be very good, and he was worried about causing some unnecessary misunderstandings, so he hurriedly said, wait, but at this time, the door had already opened. Tsunade disappeared in a flash in a hurry. After Jiraiya came in, he heard the wait, and was a little confused. "What's wrong? Is it inconvenient?" Tsunade's voice came from the bathroom. "There is a small problem, I need to wash it, you wait first." Jiraiya heard the sound of water dripping in the bathroom, was stunned for a moment, and then his face flushed half red. Although as an author who wrote a phenomenal popular novel and often went to places of entertainment, he should be considered an old driver. But every time he faced Tsunade, Jiraiya was as innocent as his first love, and he was very nervous most of the time. Originally, Duan's death was an opportunity for him, but due to friendship and other reasons, Jiraiya never spoke up, but in fact, both of them understood this feeling. It's just that Jiraiya couldn't speak up, and Tsunade really didn't consider this aspect. Most of the time, she treated Jiraiya as a friend. After all, they had grown up together, and it was not an exaggeration to say that they were childhood sweethearts. But because they were too close, there was a lack of feeling. Of course, Jiraiya's lust and ugliness were also a key factor. Otherwise, Kato would not have had any problems. At this time, in the bathroom, Shikato had his back to Tsunade. He noticed it when Jiraiya arrived, but he didn't take it to heart. He walked and sat upright, and even if there was something, he didn't think it was necessary to worry about Jiraiya. To be honest, it was not just Jiraiya who had a bad impression of him, Shikato also had a bad impression of Jiraiya. No matter how much Jiraiya praised his heroic style, or how excellent he was in other aspects, it could not cover up his voyeurism. One thing, peeping into the female bathroom, in modern society, I don't know what kind of monsters he would be criticized for, and he might even be nailed to the pillar of shame. Lust is understandable, but peeping, and a habitual offender, is a bit outrageous. Shikato had a deep prejudice against this kind of behavior. Jiraiya's bottom line in these aspects was a bit too low. But apart from this, Jiraiya's other behavior was nothing to blame. So he was not nervous about Jiraiya's arrival, but was very calm. But the next second, Tsunade appeared beside him in an instant. He turned his back quickly, then turned back and glared at her. "What are you doing?" Tsunade clasped her hands together, with a pitiful expression asking him to cooperate. Shikato was a little speechless. How could he explain the situation that could have been explained clearly? Tsunade was also anxious and confused for a while. At this time, she had reacted, but it was too late. Especially when the water from the shower soaked her pajamas, Tsunade was a little dumbfounded. She didn't bring any clothes in. Shikato turned off the shower, put on the spare ninja uniform slowly, leaned aside and looked at Tsunade, spreading his hands and signaling, "Okay, please start your performance." Tsunade was so angry about his leisurely life. If it weren't for this brat, this morning wouldn't have been so bad. And now he was laughing at her, damn it. In anger, she raised her foot and kicked the dear man. Bang! With a muffled sound, Tsunade took a breath of cold air. Is this brat hard everywhere? Why are his legs so hard too? Outside, Jiraiya coughed. "Tsunade, what's that sound?" Tsunade reacted, panicked for a moment, and hurriedly explained, I stepped on a mouse to death." Jiraiya's heart, which was beating faster, suddenly twitched. If Tsunade found out about his wild thoughts, it might not just be the mouse that was stepped on to death, right? Both of them were a little nervous. One was worried that her wild thoughts would be discovered, and the other was worried that the scene would be exposed and misunderstood. At this time, the dear man suddenly came over. Tsunade raised her eyes and signaled to him, "What are you doing?" Shikato pushed her to the corner, and then, under Tsunade's wide-eyed gaze, he pinched Tsunade's cheeks with one hand and played with them. Tsunade didn't dare to breathe, and her eyes kept drifting outward, fearing that Jiraiya would discover what was going on inside. Tsunade didn't dare to resist, so Shikato had a lot of fun, pinching her cheeks into a round shape and then into a square shape. Under Tsunade's angry gaze, Shikato pinched Tsunade's cheeks without any care, making her pout. He almost laughed out loud. Tsunade was so angry that her teeth ached, but she didn't dare to resist hard, fearing that she would make more noise. She could only endure it for the time being. "You little brat, look back and I'll beat you to death." Shikato let go of Tsunade after he had enough fun, and then, under Tsunade's gradually widening gaze, he pinched a seal with one hand. His figure turned into a tiny shadow and slipped out of the window silently. If Tsunade hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't even have noticed it. Terrifying concealment ability? When did the Nara clan have this kind of shadow secret technique? If I had known earlier, I should have let him hide first. Then thinking about how she had just been teased by this kid who was a dozen years younger, Tsunade was so angry that she took several deep breaths in succession, and finally felt a little smoother. She found an excuse to send Jiraiya away first, and then came out to pack up. Jiraiya, who left Tsunade's room, was thinking about it happily, when he suddenly thought of a detail. Just now, there seemed to be someone else's breath in Tsunade's room. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's face suddenly changed. Could it be that Tsunade said, the more he thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong? Jiraiya couldn't help but come to Tsunade's door again. Just as he was about to knock on the door, Tsunade had already opened the door and walked out. What are you doing standing at my door? Jiraiya didn't say anything, but felt it carefully again, frowning. There was indeed no one in the room. Bang! A big bump bulged on Jiraiya's head. Tsunade said angrily, idiot, why are you snooping into my room? Are you looking for death? Jiraiya covered his head and laughed foolishly. This familiar strength? Well, Tsunade should be fine. Chapter 13, Beating. At noon, Tsunade finally caught the deer man again. She was still angry about the brat who had taken the opportunity to play a prank on her. But after looking at his head and his legs, she remembered the previous encounters. Tsunade didn't know where to start, and she couldn't really use chakra, but under normal circumstances, she felt that she would be the one who suffered in the end. Tsunade angrily said, scumbag, follow me. The deer man ignored her and turned away. It was obvious that he was going to get nothing good, so no one would follow you. Then, after taking 2 steps, Tsunade grabbed the collar of his neck, and dragged the deer man with a huge strange force, and he was forcibly dragged away by Tsunade. The two came to an open forest next to the camp, and Tsunade forcefully pinned the deer man against a big tree. Shikato was very calm. What's wrong, waste princess? Tsunade smiled. Scum, have you forgotten that you took the opportunity to play a prank on me this morning? Shikato was curious. Eh? Really? Why don't I remember? Did I see you this morning? Where? Tsunade. The two of them exchanged a few more words, although their tone was not very friendly. The atmosphere was very relaxed. Finally, Tsunade dragged him to walk together in the quiet jungle, and Tsunade gradually calmed down. Shikato glanced at her and knew that she had something to say, so he followed her and waited for her to speak. Tsunade finally broke the silence. I want to know the truth of that incident. To be honest, after my contact with you during this period, I don't quite believe that you would be the kind of person who abandons your companions, but Jiraiya is also my friend. He won't lie to me. Shikato raised his eyebrows. Didn't I give you the answer last time? Tsunade suddenly looked ferocious. You little brat, I'm not kidding you. Shikato laughed, then said, the world is never black and white. What if you abandon someone, and what if you don't abandon someone? Hokage Tsukumo did not abandon his companions, but he was spurned by the villagers to the point of committing suicide. What a ninja like that, tut-tut, what a pity. Tsunade frowned, always feeling that this kid was avoiding answering, and glared at him fiercely. Shikato was helpless and finally explained, to be precise, the situation at that time should be considered to have nothing to do with me. After all, we acted separately, and our team has always been like this. Tsunade was hesitant to speak. Then why yes, I also want to know why. Shikato shrugged. Jiraiya didn't have to frame me for no reason, so someone must be setting a trap for me, maybe against me, or maybe against my family. The second point is more likely, and I can roughly guess some. But there is no need to care about these things, every village will have them, it's quite disgusting. Anyway, I'm not Hokage Tsukumo, a little public opinion pressure can't do anything to me. The more Tsunade listened, the deeper her brows frowned. To be honest, since her lover and brother died one after another, the glory of the Senju clan had long ended, and she herself suffered from hemophobia. She had thought of leaving the village to wander several times. The higher you stand, the more darkness you will see. Especially her teacher and partners are more or less involved, so that Tsunade has become more and more resistant to the Konoha ninja village. This is not the village she longed for in her ideal. It is no exaggeration to say that this mentality is disheartened. Although Tsunade will still appear on the battlefield, she basically will not show her power on the front battlefield, and even rarely intervenes in logistics. She is only responsible for detoxification, making medicine, and teaching some medical ninjas, and most of the time she is a bit perfunctory. After listening to Shikato's words, she immediately understood that this matter is obviously another fight between the village's top leaders and the family forces, and Shikato is just an innocent fish. Such a thing is really disgusting. Tsunade doesn't think Shikato is lying, because this kind of thing has happened more than once or twice, and it has happened in every village. But because of this, she has become more and more disheartened with the village. If it weren't for meeting Shikato again during this period, which made her daily life more interesting, she might have already started to think about the plan to leave the village, or even set off. Anyway, she, who suffers from hemophobia, is no longer important to the current village. Dear Man then said, "Are you satisfied with this answer? To be honest, I don't really like to explain to people, because it's annoying, tisk. I'm asking you out of trust, okay? Trust you, so why are you asking me? I treat you as a friend, and because of trust, I want you to tell me in person, eh? So corny, you should be a little more violent, I'm not used to your tone." Bang! Tsunade punched him with a red face, turned around angrily, rubbed her hands with gritted teeth, and walked away quickly, muttering to herself, "Can't you just talk to him nicely?" Seeing Tsunade getting farther and farther away, Shikato suddenly asked, "Hey, Tsunade. What do you think will happen if I compete for the position of Hokage?" Tsunade was stunned, and the ambition of her former lover and younger brother flashed in her eyes. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Whoever wants to be the one can be the one. "I'm not interested," Shikato said unhappily. "I didn't say you can be the one. What's the point of your interest?" Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, "You scum, have you never felt a beating of the seniors in the ninja world? I'll let you see it today." Shikato raised his eyebrows and hooked his fingers. "Come on, as long as you can beat me, I won't be the Hokage." To be honest, with Shikato's top-level armed color domineering, he can be said to be invincible in close combat, with integrated offense and defense. His flaw is that he is not agile enough and lacks some top-level ninjutsu. He will suffer a lot when facing speed-type opponents. At the same time, the lack of chakra also causes some powerful ninjutsu to be restricted by chakra, and the effect of the shadow manipulation technique is also discounted. Some special application methods must be sealed to exert a certain power, otherwise the top-level shadow manipulation technique can be called superb. But after the chakra limit, the shadow manipulation technique has been discounted a lot, and the effect has dropped greatly. At the current stage, if someone is kiting from a distance, or the speed type uses speed to launch an attack, the dear man will be more muggle. Although he can survive without injury, the domineering will eventually run out. However, a close combat nurse like Tsunade, unless she is a super strong, will be naturally countered by the deer man. The deer man is now a human meat shield, with high defense and high attack, but weak agility and insufficient mana. The battle on the front line is not so intense. Before, the rock ninjas of the Land of Earth were in the advantage, and the front line was close to the territory of the Land of Fire. Later, Jiraiya and others regained some advantages, but more or less fell into a tug-of-war. However, after Minato Nameki's cut off the Canopy Bridge, the temporary withdrawal of the Land of Earth was almost a foregone conclusion. The topography of the Iwagakure village had already determined this point. The only bridge connecting the side could not be repaired in a short time. In the case of insufficient logistical supplies, if the stalemate continued, they would be wiped out. So at this time, the camp was still relatively calm until the battle between Shikato and Tsunade. Shikato walked in front with a calm expression, and there was no sign of anything unusual. Tsunade followed behind, lowering her head and unwilling to raise it. Chapter 14 Danzo is watching you. In the distance, the short Shizune trotted over. "Tsunade-sama, I've been looking for you for a long time, where have you been?" Tsunade lowered her head and said nothing. "Hey. Tsunade-sama, what's wrong with your eyes?" Shizune looked up and looked at the two big dark circles under Tsunade-sama's eyes, curious. Shikato turned around. "Hello again, Shizune." Shizune's cheeks flushed. "Hello again, Shikato-sama, always so polite." Shikato explained to her, "Your Tsunade-sama insisted on sparring with me. I won by a small move. I am ashamed." Tsunade-sama gritting her teeth at my already humble face. "I clearly punched him more than 20 times and kicked him more than a dozen times, but he was not only unscathed, but he took the opportunity to KO me with 2 punches. Damn it. If it weren't for the fact that this was just a sparring match, I wouldn't have to use the secret techniques of the Yin Seal, I wouldn't have lost to him. Tsunade was still very unconvinced, but at the same time, she also became more and more clear about Shikato's strength. Although she didn't know what kind of ninjutsu he used, it was incredible that he could suppress her with just close combat without using the family's secret technique. Even though she still had a lot of tricks that she hadn't used, she had to admit that Nara Shikato's level was already very high. At least at his age, she was far from being so exaggerated. The Nara clan had produced a monster. But when Shizune heard this, she opened her mouth wide. Tsunade-sama lost to Shikato-sama. Although Shikato was only 3 years older than Shizune, he was much shorter, so much so that Shizune still thought Shikato was an adult in his 20s or 30s. Shikato was too lazy to explain, and he didn't suffer any loss anyway. As for Tsunade, for some reason, she never explained Shikato's age to Shizune. Somewhere in a dark underground base, a middle-aged man with a scepter put down the information in his hand, the most talented member of the Nara clan in history? It must be very uncomfortable to be tortured between the village and the family. Sarutobi, you always like to do those boring tricks. You don't have the pattern of being a Hokage at all. It's really disappointing. It's better to let me do it. Now only I can drive the carriage of Konoha. Boy, let me teach you. The so-called Konoha ninja should be the one who silently supports the towering tree of Konoha behind the scenes, and the roots are deeply rooted in the earth. No need for a name, no need for the future, no care about the past, feelings are just redundant, silent dedication, this is the meaning of our existence. Humph, Hokage? It will belong to me in the end. Behind him, Orochimaru pulled his hood. Danzo was in YY again. Thinking of this, his eyes fell on the information of Nara Shikato. The most talented Nara clan? Humph, it's just the Nara clan. What a pity, if it was Uchiha, it would be great. Orochimaru thought of Uchiha's fiery red Magatama pupils, and couldn't help showing off his 2-foot-long tongue. Abiram Ryoma, standing on the other side, always felt a chill all over his body, and also pulled his hood. Who are Lord Danzo and Lord Orochimaru planning to plot against again? Such terrible malice. The war in the ninja world is never over quickly in a day or two. After all, it's not a game of house. Even if Minato Namikaze took a back road and blew up the Canopy Bridge, the retreat of the rock ninjas was still in order, but they just had to take a long detour. At the same time, when the rock ninjas were defeated on the battlefield, the cloud ninjas increased their strength on the battlefield. The two sides seemed to have discussed it. If they encountered setbacks here, the other side would definitely explode. As a result, the main force of Konoha on the battlefields of both sides has been pulled back and forth. Keep the trend of not letting Konoha bite off any big piece of meat. Especially the hidden cloud village, after the former Eight-Tails Jinchuriki was killed by Orochimaru and the third Raikage was ambushed and killed by the hidden rock village, they still maintained a very high level of combat and kept biting Konoha, like a mad dog. Originally, the Canopy Bridge was blown up, which was the best time to pursue the rock ninja. Although it is difficult to fight in the territory of the Land of Earth, after all, it is easy to defend and difficult to attack, but it is still possible to chase the stragglers. However, during this period, the Cloud Ninja exploded on the battlefield. The Ob combination was rampant, and the Two-Tails Jinchuriki was also thrown onto the battlefield, like a mad dog who did not care about any consequences. And without the top combat forces such as Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Namikaze Minato, it is really a bit too much for Orochimaru alone. After all, Orochimaru has never been known for his frontal combat power, but for his endless weird ninjutsu. It is a bit difficult for him to face the tailed beasts and the Ob combination on the front battlefield. So Orochimaru followed Danzo's request and asked Jiraiya for help. Namikaze Minato had returned to the battlefield on the side of the Cloud Ninja, and Tsunade was also pulled over to help. Jiraiya couldn't leave. Although the rock ninjas began to retreat, they couldn't let their guard down. Otherwise, if the rock ninjas used the Black Tiger heart-dropping technique again, the loss to Konoha would be huge. After all, the rock ninjas had done it once before, directly reducing the battle line maintained by Konoha's top ninja Mimura Yamaki to single digits, and they were almost robbed. Jiraiya couldn't leave for the time being. Shikato was originally going to help, and Tsunade thought so too. But Jiraiya kept him on the grounds that an elite ninja was needed here. During this time, Jiraiya said that he felt comfortable watching Tsunade teach Shikato medical ninjutsu in person, and they were almost envious. He didn't get along well with Shikato in the first place, and the two of them were the kind of people with different values. Shikato didn't care about some of the things that Jiraiya was obsessed with, and Shikato didn't like some of the things that Jiraiya indulged in. This can no longer be considered right or wrong, it's just a pure disagreement of the three views. Therefore, Jiraiya didn't want Tsunade to have contact with the other party for a long time, and always felt that Tsunade would fall into it sooner or later. Therefore, Jiraiya found a reason to keep Shikato. When Tsunade left, she seemed a little disappointed. This made Jiraiya feel a pain in his heart, but when he turned around, he saw that Shikato was not affected at all and continued to do his own thing, which immediately hit him even harder. Shikato really didn't take Jiraiya's little trick to heart. It's the same to maintain health anywhere. And this place is even more stable and safer. As for Tsunade, just let it go. During this period, he also used the newly harvested health points to increase the lightning escape in the ninjutsu by a small level. From the original 9%, it increased to 12%. The increase is not high, only a small increase, but it does increase the amount of chakra by a considerable amount. He found that as long as he improved the 5 elements ninjutsu, he could passively increase the total amount of chakra, which surprised him. He had been focusing on improving his armament color and shadow secrets before. He had neglected the 5 elements ninjutsu to some extent, so it was no wonder that his overall chakra amount had always been a bit low. Although it was probably not as practical to use the 5 elements related ninjutsu to the maximum, it was not as practical as sealing a tailed beast. But at present, he could not find a suitable seal for the tailed beast, and he did not master the sealing technique that could seal the tailed beast. Ordinary sealing techniques were useless for sealing giants like the tailed beasts. He felt that he still had to find a way to contact the Uzumaki clan, as that clan had some attainments in sealing techniques. Of course, it would be great if he could get the book of sealing from Konoha. It was a pity that he was not ready to become a rebel ninja, at least not now. Otherwise, there should be many suitable sealing techniques in the book of sealing. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Danzo, this guy is a bit proactive. The cleanup work on the battlefield of the Land of Earth was progressing little by little. On this day, Shikato, who had just returned from his mission, was stopped by 2 unfamiliar figures. He was wearing a brown windbreaker cape and a mask with purple patterns on his face. A pair of eyes without any emotion were looking at him through the mask. The other one was wearing the same thing, but the pattern and color of the mask were different, and the rest was basically the same. The 2 Konoha companions who were traveling with Shikato immediately drew their kunai and were ready for battle. Shikato raised his hand to stop them and whispered, "You are from the root. You should go back first." The pupils of the 2 people shrank slightly when they heard this. The reputation of the root organization in Konoha and even in the ninja world is not very good. However, they did not have a deep friendship with Shikato. After the 2 members of the root on the opposite side showed their ID cards, they had to retreat. After all, Danzo's status in Konoha is still very high. "Nara Shikato, what can I do for you? Come with us. Master Danzo wants to see you." Shikato did not refuse, and it was not convenient for him to refuse. He himself did not dislike Danzo. After all, he persecuted and targeted the Uchiha clan. He perfectly inherited the attitude of the second-generation Hokage towards the Uchiha clan, so this kind of targeted malice naturally had nothing to do with him. After all, Shikato was not surnamed Uchiha. As for Danzo's dark style of doing things, it didn't matter. Shikato did not have a bloodline limit, and as for the secret techniques of the Nara clan, Danzo might not even look at them if they were given to him. As a ninja who had experienced the period of the first generation in Madara, he only had the bloodline limits of the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan in his eyes. As for other bloodline limits, what kind of garbage is that? Dogs don't want them. Therefore, when facing the upper Danzo, Shikato never felt that there would be any danger. What's more, he was not a vegetarian. Danzo was taken to the deeper part of the jungle, holding a scepter in both hands. At this time, he was not far away, with his back to her silently. Straight waist, trivial short hair, and a bandage wrapped around the forehead around the right eye. Danzo during this period naturally couldn't have Shisu's main Gekyo. After all, Shisu was so young, and he probably hadn't opened his main Gekyo yet. But judging from the bandages that had been wrapped around his right eye for years, even if it wasn't a main Gekyo, it was probably a Sharingan. After all, this kind of power had always been one of his long-cherished wishes. With the assistance of Orochimaru, Danzo had already become even more powerful in human experiments, and it was still possible for him to get a Sharingan. However, Danzo didn't pay much attention to his appearance. Otherwise, like Kakashi, he would cover his right eye with a mask, and the sense of mystery would be full. Unlike now, with a bandage wrapped around it, he looked like a blind man with one eye. After Shikato arrived, two root ninjas immediately came to Danzo's side. Danzo looked up at the sky and kept this posture for a minute. After feeling the atmosphere was right, he slowly turned around and said, "This should be our first meeting, Nara Shikato. Shikato, isn't this nonsense? Could it be that this is the darkness of the ninja world that the ninja world is rumored to be afraid of?" That's it. However, he still gave face, put away his laziness in the past, and said more seriously, "Yes, Danzo-sama." Danzo nodded. "Are you curious about why I asked you to come?" Shikato shook his head. "No, I admire Danzo-sama very much, and I obey Danzo-sama's orders unconditionally." Danzo just glanced at him indifferently. "Poor acting skills. You are indeed the same as they mentioned. Unrestrained, indifferent, like to ridicule others, bold and indulgent." Shikato smiled. "I have no ill will towards Danzo-sama." Next to Danzo, Yamanaka Hana under the hood approached him. "Sir, he is not lying. Nara Shikato is a rare ninja who has no resistance when facing you directly. Of course, it seems that there is no emotion such as appreciation or yearning. But this is not pleasant to hear, so Yamanaka Hana did not say it." Danzo narrowed his one eye. "I can see ambition in your eyes. Answer me, Nara Shikato, what is your goal?" "Shikato, is this how Danzo tries to get people to talk? I don't even know what my ambition is, can you see it? Or why don't you tell me? Also, what is my goal? How can I answer this? I don't know." Danzo narrowed his eyes dangerously, and his tone was a little lower. "What are you hesitating about? Are you thinking of an excuse?" Shikato immediately raised his head, his face full of glory. "I want to revitalize the Nara clan and protect the entire Konoha." Yamanaka Hana whispered to Danzo, "He should not be lying." I don't feel any fraudulent emotional fluctuations from him, although Danzo had some doubts in his eyes. Since Yamanaka Hana gave her affirmation, he had nothing to say. In fact, Shikato did have this idea. It's just that he has too many ideas, and Danzo insisted that he say one, so he could only make up a great one. This is not considered fraud, it's just a simple thought. Is it not okay to think about it? Shikato's answers made Danzo very satisfied. You know, the root doesn't just recruit people randomly. One of its major characteristics is the secret technique, and the other is the perseverance to move forward in the darkness. Shikato seems to meet these 2 points. Danzo thought for a while. Shikato answered quickly, "I am willing to join the root, my lord." "He is sincere?" Yamanaka Hana added again in a low voice. Danzo opened his mouth. It was the first time he met someone who was so enthusiastic about joining the root. Originally, he did want to pull Shikato into the root. But Shikato's answer just now made him realize that maybe he could arrange for Shikato to go to the ANBU. Monitoring Sarutobi Hiruzen's whereabouts for him might be an unexpected chess piece. But seeing Shikato's meticulous look, Danzo felt that it would be okay to agree with him. It was the first time that Danzo encountered a young man who was full of yearning for the department he created, which made him have some rare emotional fluctuations. "Okay. In this case, from today on, you are a member of the root. The root does not need a name, does not ask about origins, and does not seek a future. It only supports the towering tree of Konoha. Your code name is Deer." After that, Danzo spoke quickly and turned away. He will be handed over to you. Take him through the root process, and then go to perform that mission. Let me see the real potential of this young man who has just joined the root. The most talented member of the Nara clan in history. Don't let me down." Deer Man glanced at the 2 root members who stayed in place. He had prepared for the worst, but he didn't expect that the person Danzo was surprised by was quite good. Of course, it may also be because he is not surnamed Uchiha. After all, that clan is really good at attracting hatred. On the side, Aburame Ryoma, codenamed Horse in the Root, took off his hood and said, "Come with me. Since Lord Danzo has agreed to your joining, some things must be done in advance, for example, the seal of the tongue. This seal on the tongue is to ensure that the members of the root will never reveal any secrets related to Danzo. As for the brainwashing training in the root that puts mission first and eliminates the self, these dear people don't need to join. Those trainings are for children who have been trained by Danzo since childhood. And those who changed their ways, such as Orochimaru and Aburame Ryoma, have never participated. After all, brainwashing a mature person is difficult and time-consuming. If you want them to assist Danzo wholeheartedly, all you need is Danzo to show his unique personality charm, Big Fist. For example, Ryoma and Hana surrendered like this. If this doesn't work, then uniting here for the sake of interests is also acceptable. For example, Orochimaru is like this. He is nominally a subordinate of Danzo, but he is more of a partner. However, the main reason for this is that Orochimaru is strong enough and has helped Danzo enough, so Orochimaru is allowed to be unique in the root. And if Shikato wants to achieve that, he must prove himself. So the next task is Danzo's test of Shikato, which is related to Shikato's position in the root. Chapter 16 Leaving and Action. Nara Shikato joined the root. This information was deduced by Jiraiya, because with Nara Shikato's style of doing things, he might not have any resistance to the root. Of course, if the root invited him, Nara Shikato's current identity might not be able to refuse. But Jiraiya didn't know what the truth was, and he didn't care about it. Because joining the root means cutting off all possibilities with a past self, crossing out the name, erasing the past, not seeking the future, and walking in the dark with a code name for the rest of your life. And if you don't join and disappear, that's even worse. Of course, if you are strong enough and valuable enough, like Orochimaru, it doesn't matter. Orochimaru has independence and nominally belongs to the root, but it's just a name. In the village, the number of people who know that Orochimaru has joined the root is no more than a handful. He is more of the Lord Orochimaru, one of the three ninjas that people admire. Jiraiya doesn't think Shikato is qualified to receive the treatment of Orochimaru, so he was relieved after Shikato disappeared. In this way, Tsunade can be more peaceful. It might be a bit rude to think like this, but he really doesn't like Nara Shikato. Nara Shikato disappeared on the battlefield. Tsunade heard the news in a casino in a village near the Kumagakure battlefield. That day, her gambling luck was unexpectedly explosive. She almost won every time she bet. She bet big, small, medium and small. It made her a little panicked, and finally she gritted her teeth and went all in on the leopard. In the end, she won again, which really made Tsunade's face solemn. At this time, Shizune was looking for her anxiously, and ran over and whispered, "Tsunade-sama, Jiraiya-sama sent news that Shikato-sama disappeared on the battlefield." Bang! Tsunade's chips fell to the ground, and her breathing was a little disordered. "No, that guy is very strong, it's impossible, Impossible, it's impossible." "Right, Shizune." Shizune opened her mouth, but couldn't answer. This is not the first time that Tsunade-sama has encountered such a thing. It seems that every time someone worthy of her attention appears, they will encounter misfortune one after another. Family, lover, brother, and now even friends are going to be lost? This must be a big blow to Lady Tsunade, right? She secretly glanced at Tsunade, and seeing that her face was not good, she became more and more worried. 2 days later, Tsunade of Konoha disappeared on the battlefield without orders. She left Konoha quietly, taking only Shizune with her, leaving only a note, and no other traces. Compared with the disappearance of Shikato, Tsunade's departure is the real heavy news. Tsunade of Konoha, one of the rumored 3 ninjas, left the Konoha ninja village alone. Of course, this news did not spread on a large scale, and it was announced to the outside world that she was carrying out a confidential mission. Naturally, no one doubted it in a short period of time, but after a long time, it could not be hidden. Tsunade's status in Konoha is more important in people's hearts. The legendary 3 ninjas, the Troika of Konoha, the princess of the Senju clan, the granddaughter of Senju Hashirama, and the disciple of the 3rd generation Hokage. All the countless honors are Tsunade's halo. A woman with so many halos has left Konoha Ninja Village at this time. If it were an ordinary ninja, she would be defined as a traitor on the same day. But Tsunade is so special that she can only suppress this news. She can't be defined as a traitor at all, unless she blatantly attacks Konoha. Relatively speaking, the disappearance of Dear Man is only spread in a small range. and only a few people know the truth. The third-generation Hokage naturally couldn't define Dear Man as a traitor, but put up a missing sign as a cover. The third-generation Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen was actually very angry about Danzo recruiting Nara Dear Man. During the war, he had been dealing with and fighting with the major families. On the one hand, he had to balance the family power, and on the other hand, he had to find a way to gather power. Otherwise, it would be too easy for the major families to form a tail in Konoha. If they united a little, Konoha's Hokage would be sidelined. But during this period, Danzo poached people from various families behind his back. Isn't this a slap in his face? After a big quarrel with Danzo at this time couldn't make any waves with Sarutobi. He could only say, "You will regret it," and then slammed the door and left. Sarutobi Hiruzen smoked a big pipe. His mentality was very stable. Regret? Impossible. The third Hokage, will never regret it. I was still considering how to punish Danzo, but at this time, the front line suddenly sent back news that his disciple Tsunade had left the battlefield and disappeared in the territory of Konoha. There was only a note left in her room. There was only one sentence written on it, which was what Tsunade said when she occasionally heard Shikato complain. "The ninja world, casino, is so big, I want to go and see it." Then Tsunade left. Sarutobi Hiruzen's mentality, which was as stable as an old dog, exploded on the spot, and he even forgot to deal with Danzo's punishment. I was in a daze for the whole day, feeling that I was seriously unqualified as a Hokage and a teacher, and I failed. Land of Earth, Iwagakure Ninja Village, in the border area, an uninhabited temple stands here. 3 figures wearing gray windbreakers flashed by and finally landed in the corner, each wearing a patterned mask. Aburame Ryoma signaled Shikato and Hana to stop. He whispered to Shikato, "The target is here, and now is a rare opportunity." The other party had a dispute with a third Tsuchika Jinoki, left the village without permission, and was active in the border area. "But are you sure you want to target him? Although this mission is to determine Shikato's position in the route, there is no need to choose such a difficult one, right?" When Orochimaru proved himself, he was not so exaggerated. He actually wanted to attack Laozi, the Jinchuriki of the four-tailed beast Son Goku. It must be said that this is a bit too bold. But it is precisely because of this goal that Danzo-sama took it seriously and actually agreed to this special mission he chose. If possible, Danzo doesn't mind becoming a Jinchuriki. If Shikato can do this, then he must improve his evaluation of Shikato. But can the Nara clan really be that strong? Danzo looked forward to it, and was slightly excited. The tailed beast, as long as he got it, the position of Hokage would be within his grasp. Danzo's ambition prompted him to agree to Shikato's bold plan. But reason made him suppress his excitement and sent the most trusted Ryoma and Hana to follow him. In case of any accidents, Ryoma and Hana would be responsible for handling some traces. The people of the Land of Earth must not be allowed to know that Konoha attacked the Jinchuriki of the Iwagakure, otherwise Konoha would fall into a huge passive situation. Jinchuriki is a taboo in every village. Chapter 17 Jinchuriki. Shikato closed his eyes and felt the chakra in the dilapidated temple, which was as hot as the sun. Tisk, it's really exaggerated. Is this the tailed beast? To be honest, Shikato was not sure that he could subdue the four-tailed Jinchuriki, but this did not stop him from trying. It happened that he had someone with roots to support him, and he didn't need to worry about intelligence information at all, so he naturally chose the most challenging one. Even if he failed, he could still prove his worth. Shikato waved to Ryoma and Hana, signaling them to step back and be on guard. Ryoma and Hana's mission this time was to help erase Shikato's traces, whether he succeeded or not. They had to complete all this and leave here before the Iwagakure arrived. When Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana stepped back, the chakra like a small sun in the temple also moved. A middle-aged man wearing hard and shabby clothes like a wandering monk came out. He was not tall, wearing a purple robe, a simple leather armor on the outside, and a brown hood on his head with a logo of the Iwagakure Forward Protector on it. The striking red messy hair was tied up at the back of his head, and there were some beards on both sides of his cheeks. He stood at the door of the temple, his hands crossed in front of his chest, staring at the deer man not far away. "Who is coming?" The deer man lifted his hood, revealing a red flame-patterned mask underneath, and his dark pupils looked at the other party. Old Purple. Old Purple frowned coldly, and at this time the four-tailed beast in his body suddenly spoke to remind him, "Old Purple, be careful, this guy is not right, Zizzy, the top-level Armament Haki, has completely covered his whole body. This is the first time that the deer man has fully erupted. People without Haki naturally cannot see the rich black Haki on the surface of the deer man. But the momentum created by the top-level Haki made the tailed beasts clearly feel abnormal. The shadow secret technique is not enough in front of such a behemoth as the tailed beast. This is not to say that the power of the shadow secret technique is weak, but that his chakra is too little, and it is almost impossible to imprison the tailed beast. So this time he can only rely on the top-level Armament Haki, and the shadow secret technique can only be used as an auxiliary means of attack. The deer man stomped his feet hard on the spot. Bang! The compacted ground shook belatedly, and then a large-scale crack like a spider web appeared directly, and smoke and dust flew up. Under the huge force of the recoil, the deer man's body was like a cannonball, and he rushed to Lao Zi's eyes in a flash. "Be careful," the four-tailed beast roared. Lao Zi had been mentally prepared by it before. The molten chakra on his body's surface gushed out crazily. Molten chakra mode. A golden coat like lava immediately formed on Lao Zi's body, and he pinched his hands. Molten chakra burning river rock technique. He opened his mouth and sprayed a huge magma fireball that slammed into the deer man who was close at hand. But the deer man did not dodge or evade. He twisted his waist and hips in midair and stretched his arms to the limit. A punch. With extremely strong force, the top-level armed color domineering bonus smashed down. The lava fireball as big as a small car was knocked down by the deer man's head with a punch. Not only that, because of the force of the sprint, the force was too strong. Shikato even punched the lava fireball into pieces. It exploded into countless fiery fragments in the air. But the fist was not blocked at all, and it rushed forward to hit Lao Zi's chest. A huge black and red tail suddenly appeared, blocking the front of Lao Zi's molten chakra coat. Bang! A deafening collision sounded. Shikato took advantage of the momentum to flip in the air and landed smoothly. Lao Zi rolled non-stop, smashing the temple behind him, and plowing a charred gully on the ground, and finally stopped after more than 100 meters. Shikato stood there, exhaled comfortably, and his eyebrows flew up. It feels great. With his current armed color domineering, only the tailed beasts could withstand a one-on-one melee. Of course, Madara's complete form of Susanoo can also fight. This was the first time he used his full strength, and he didn't have to worry about the other party being unable to bear it. This feeling was simply too good. In the distance, Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana were stunned. In addition to cleaning up the mess, the two of them also wanted to witness the true level of Shikato. But what the hell is this going to fight with a Jinchuriki? As if he was going to tear the tailed beast apart with his bare hands. Breaking up the lava escape with one punch, and knocking the Jinchuriki away along with the tailed beast coat? Are you kidding? At this time, they finally realized the reason why Shikato chose such a task, because he really could do it. On the other side, Lao Zi, who was a little confused by the punch from Shikato, shook his head vigorously, covered his chest and stood up staggeringly. The four tails in his body began to cooperate with him very rarely. Lao Zi nodded. The clothes on his body exploded instantly. He didn't think much at all, and directly entered the state of complete tailed beast transformation. The power of the punch just now was too explosive. Whether it was the tailed beast coat or the lava escape chakra coat, it had no effect at all. Other modes were just a waste of time and only added to his injuries, so he simply threw out his strongest form. Completely transformed into a tailed beast. Four-tailed beast Son Goku. Completely different from the Monkey King in Shikamon's memory. Of course, if they were the same, he would probably surrender directly. The four-tailed beast is a huge orangutan monster with a body as big as a mountain. There is a golden hoop on the top of its head, two really eye-catching huge fangs in its bloody mouth, and four big red tails behind its buttocks. As soon as it appeared, it couldn't help but slap its chest hard and roared to the sky. The terrifying shock wave spread, and Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana in the distance all changed their faces. The complete four-tailed beast, what a terrifying momentum. In addition to being able to cast lava at will, the four-tailed beast is also known for its huge body and extremely huge strange power. When the four tails roared, Shikamaru had already jumped and sprinted again. The man was in midair, staring at the huge four-tailed beast like a mountain. A punch full of armed color domineering was thrown down. The four-tailed beast was not much inferior. It was famous for its strange strength, so it naturally refused to admit defeat. In its perfect state, the huge gorilla fist whizzed past. Big fist hit small fist. Bang! The explosion sounded like thunder throughout the area. Along with it, a huge ripple that was almost visible to the naked eye swept through the air violently. The surface of the ground was agitated like waves, dirt was flying, and gravel was jumping. Even though they were far apart, the clothes on Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana were also fluttering under this ripple. The hair was flying, and the impact wave that came in the face made the two people almost forget to think. Then they saw the huge body of the four-tailed beast was blown away like a firecracker. However, at the moment of flying out, a huge tail slapped the deer man fiercely. Bang! The deer man also flew back, and finally landed after rolling up a circle of dust. The four-tailed beast smashed the sky and the ground with dust, then suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, with a pair of big lantern-like eyes, looking at the deer man as if he was looking at a monster. This guy's fist is simply too strong and hard. Chapter 18 Escape. Compared to the deer man, the four-tailed beast felt that he was unworthy of the title of tailed beast. This guy was like a human-shaped tailed beast. No, it was not just about strength. Looking at the deer man standing up from the dust, his whole body was intact. The four-tailed beast widened his eyes. What kind of monster is this guy? Lao Zi felt the same pain as the punch just now and was also horrified. What should we do? Sun Wukong, the four-tailed beast, gurgled to his feet, stared at the deer man cautiously, and answered Lao Zi, "Don't worry, I have probably noticed his weakness in the two fights just now." What? This guy is not invincible. His speed is not fast. Of course, we don't have much advantage in this regard. Do you mean to use speed to regain the advantage? No, we should prepare to escape. Don't be silly. This guy's defense gives me the feeling that it is impeccable. He can be defeated in a short time. If you want to wear him down, you must change the terrain and use another method. But here, I can't withstand a few more punches from him. That kind of force, I have never heard of it in my life. The fist of the six-path sage is not as hard as his. I don't mind running away, but if I run away, there seem to be two ninjas over there. It doesn't matter. If those two catch up alone, it will be no different from committing suicide. I don't mind venting my anger on them. Okay. After the two exchanged some words, they immediately opened their mouths and began to spit lava fireballs at the deer man, who rushed over again. Bang, bang, bang. One after another, huge lava fireballs, like the doomsday scene when a volcano erupted, kept hitting the deer man, who rushed over. The ground in the nearby area was rubbed by the lava, and a dark scorched mark was directly left. The hot air wave rolled in. The deer man frowned, ran faster and faster, and sprinted forward. The oncoming lava fireball was directly smashed and flew away by his punch. The scene was extremely shocking. Especially Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana, who were watching from a distance. It was like watching a special effects blockbuster. Compared with the huge lava fireballs, the deer man's body was like a sesame seed, but he kept hitting the huge fireballs and making them explode on the spot. The waves of fire rolled and burned the earth. After Shikato smashed all the lava fireballs, the huge four-tailed beast in the distance had disappeared, and was replaced by the appearance of Jinchuriki Lao Zi. At this time, Lao Zi was running for his life with his back to Shikato. Shikato's face was full of black lines. Did he choose to escape so soon? Not to mention that he hadn't had enough fun fighting, just the fact that the other party chose to escape was quite helpless for him. Danzo had many secret ninjas under his command, but there were few ninjas who were proficient in sealing barriers. It's not that there were none, but there were no strong ones to trap the Jinchuriki. And if no one helped him seal the other party in a barrier, if the Jinchuriki chose to slip away, he really had no way to deal with it. He was indeed not strong in this aspect, and it would take some time to accumulate. Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana were still in shock, until the Jinchuriki ran away and Shikato didn't catch up. Then they came over in surprise. "Aren't you going to chase him?" "I can't catch up. Speed is my weakness." Shikato couldn't do anything. "Who told you not to find a few ninjas who are proficient in barrier techniques to help?" "I mentioned it before, you just ignored it." Aburame Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana really didn't expect that Shikato, who had such an explosive performance before, was actually average in speed. But this also made them feel relieved. In that state just now, Shikato was too scary. Although the tailed beast didn't release the tailed beast ball throughout the whole process, the terrifying lava ninjutsu was also extraordinary, but it was blown up by a fist. A good four-tailed beast known for its strange strength was actually beaten by Shikato's punches and chose to run away. This is a bit scary. It's simply a humanoid tailed beast that doesn't know the tailed beast ball. when the two submitted this mission report to Shimura Danzo. Shimura Danzo was shocked and regretful. If he had known earlier, he should have asked Sarutobi to borrow some people from the sealing squad. With their cooperation, if only one person couldn't do it, he could just send more people. As long as he trapped the Jinchuriki, wouldn't a four-tailed beast be within easy reach? As a result, he wasted such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because he was not prepared. It would be very unlikely to find such an opportunity again. The Jinchuriki was attacked, and the major villages would probably be on guard. It would be almost impossible to get it so easily again. However, even if the four-tailed Jinchuriki escaped, Danzo was more and more satisfied with Shikato. With such a golden fighter joining, there was no need to worry about not being able to accomplish great things. The Crouching Dragon, Nara Shikato, and the Phoenix Hatchling, Orochimaru, are all in my hands. Sarutobi, what can you use to fight me? What's more, one of your 3 carriages has been given to me, and one has already left. Now there's only the last one left. I told you a long time ago that you will regret it. Ho. Not far away, Orochimaru, who was concentrating on doing experiments, heard Danzo's rare unbridled laughter and just glanced at him. It was not surprising. Danzo was probably playing house with Sarutobi in his mind again. Sometimes I think Danzo is really a bit pitiful. Sarutobi devoted all his love to the village. Danzo's love was not reciprocated after all. Then Orochimaru lowered his head grimly and continued to dissect the body of the Uchiha clan victim on the operating table. His pale, slender fingers gently stroked the scarlet Sharingan, and his more than 2 feet long tongue couldn't help but stick it out to breathe fresh air. His obsession with the 3 Magatama Sharingan was like looking at a work of art. In the corner, Aburain Ryoma and Yamanaka Hana, who had just submitted their mission reports, trembled. Danzo and Orochimaru were so terribly malicious. It felt that the two of them were getting weirder and weirder. If they were targeted, the consequences would be unimaginable. In the Kumo Ninja battlefield, in the Konoha camp, Namikaze Minato sat cross-legged on the side, and opposite him were the patriarchs of the Ino, Shika and Jo families. Nara Shikato, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Akimichi Chusa sat in a row, tasting Kushina's cooking. During this period, with the arrival of Namikaze Minato, Konoha once again gained a clear advantage in the battle against the Kumo Ninja. It's not that Namikaze Minato is much stronger than Orochimaru, but that Minato's ability is too terrifying to the average Jonin, and few Jonin can escape Minato's attack. And Orochimaru is a bit of a nerd, and he can't be found most of the time. After Kushina prepared the meal and served it on the table, she also sat next to Minato. The Ino, Shika and Jo families teased the two of them. During the meal, Minato took the initiative to ask Shikaku, "I heard that Shikato went missing on the battlefield. As his brother, you don't seem to be worried at all." Shikaku pointed to the ground and gave all of them an understanding expression. "He is there, and he has a high degree of freedom. He didn't come back, or he was reported missing, just because he was too lazy to go out. He is so happy now, soaking in the collection room over there every day, learning things that he can't learn outside. He goes to bed early and gets up early, and he has no missions. So, there is no need to worry about him at all." Namikaze Minato heard this and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had seen Shikato's unique personality. He just didn't expect that he could be free in the art department. This strong adaptability is really enviable. If it were Minato, he felt that he would definitely not be able to stay in the route for a long time, because it was too dark. Chapter 19 Minato wants to become Hokage. Kushina sat aside, listening to them discussing Shikato, somewhat curious. "Shikaku, I've heard you talk about your brother many times, but I've never seen him." Shikaku tasted a glass of sake. "Really? But that kid is quite a headache." Choza and Heiai laughed at once. They had seen Shikato many times, and they were very familiar with Shikato's temper. Namikaze Minato recalled the previous encounter with Shikato, and said, "Actually, he should be quite good." After leading the team to Suma and the others, the 3 people's perception of Shikato changed a lot. It was the rumor that ruined him, otherwise he should be very popular with girls. "Hey? Is he a handsome guy?" Kushina teased. "Very elegant." Minato smiled indifferently. However, when talking about the rumor about Shikato before, the 3 families of Ino, Shika and Jo became more or less silent. Including Minato, they basically understood the twists and turns in it. During this period, no one in the major families was quiet. The third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen took the opportunity to collect a lot of rights that were separated, but he had all kinds of excuses. And in the end, the people of the root were the ones who took the blame, and the hatred was transferred to the root department. However, after Shikato joined the root, some clues that confused people became much clearer. Some of these families may have been the work of the root. After all, the root also took the opportunity to cut the leaks of the Konoha families and harvested a lot of potential children. But Shikato's matter was undoubtedly the work of the third-generation Hokage, who seemed to be a good guy. It was used to make the Nara clan voluntarily give up some resources and give them to the Konoha ninja village. After all, Shikato is the most talented member of the Nara clan and is the focus of the clan's training. There is no room for any mistakes. It's just that Shikato himself doesn't care, but the clan does pay full attention to him. Minato is not against the idea of the third generation to collect power. After all, Konoha seems to be united at present, but the family power in the village is too divided. If you are not careful, you will be easily bitten back. But Minato didn't agree with some of the Sandame's methods. If he were to sit in that position, he would probably have a headache, but Minato felt that he would not resort to such methods. Minato's bottom line was much higher. This was also the main reason why the Shikato clan, and even more clans began to contact Minato. The Sandame was old and had been in office for long enough. Even if he didn't want to abdicate, there were some things he couldn't do. And the only people who could succeed the Sandame, apart from the three ninjas, were very few Konoha ninjas. Although the Uchiha and Hyuga clans were large in size, they also had a high hatred value and were excluded by the major clans. There were also people among the Konoha elders who were qualified, but Udatane Kaharu and Midamanen were not strong enough, and they were not young. As for the other one, well, he was not considered by the clan forces. Danzo was too shady. If he became Hokage, the Uchiha clan would probably never be able to sleep again, and other clan forces were not very confident in him. Among the remaining people, there was only Minato. In this ninja world war, Minato's performance was really dazzling. In addition to the influence and importance of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki Kushina, with the full support of these families, Minato's chances are very great. Of course, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade all have greater influence in the village than Minato. However, Tsunade, the most competitive, has never had that intention, and now she has even left Konoha. Jiraiya has never been interested in this, and Orochimaru, well, this guy is a more powerful competitor, and he even has a better chance than Minato. But like Danzo, he is not entertained by family forces, especially the Red Eyes clan in the alien family, who hate him very much. Orochimaru wanders around the Uchiha clan whenever he has nothing to do. It is said that someone has seen Orochimaru carrying a shovel to dig the graves of his clan members. The Uchiha clan is extremely opposed to Orochimaru's rise to power, and highly suspects that several bodies of clan members lost in the clan were stolen by Orochimaru. In fact, although it was finally transferred to Orochimaru, it was done by other people in the root, which was considered to be an injustice to Orochimaru. Compared with the Red Eyes clan, the Hyuga clan is much more obedient and honest. But the Hyuga clan is too obsessed with blood, and its strength is slightly worse. The members of the clan are all very cold and never marry with outsiders. This leads to the Hyuga clan having no friends and no supporters outside, and they have always maintained a lonely and arrogant personality. Root Department, Underground Base. Some secret rooms in the root are open to Shikato. After proving his worth, Shikato has great authority in the root. Except for some confidential information that is not open to him, Shikato has great authority in secret rooms such as ninjutsu. Although it is limited to the scope of ninjutsu, there is no secret technique, but there are many sealing techniques that are relatively scarce for Shikato. I don't know if Danzo dug up the ancestral tombs of the Uzumaki clan, and there are too many sealing techniques here. Although Shikato cannot access those top sealing techniques for the time being, his contribution is not enough. But just these things at the moment are enough for Shikato to learn for a long time. Just like Orochimaru's position in the root, Shikato is not so exaggerated, but there are indeed few restrictions. Moreover, Danzo is very satisfied with Shikato. Unlike Orochimaru, who always has his own little ideas and does little things behind his back. In addition to patiently learning the sealing technique, Shikato never asks why Danzo gives him an order, and basically helps him solve it perfectly. This is much more considerate than Orochimaru. Of course, there are not many tasks worth Shikato's help. Basically, most of the time, It is to escort Danzo out to show off. Show off in front of the daimyo or other big figures, brush up your reputation, and prepare for the future. In addition, it is to use Shikato's high proficiency in the shadow secret technique to occasionally lurk in the enemy camp to collect some intelligence information. Of course, this kind of thing happens less frequently. After all, why use a butcher knife to kill a chicken? But the few times that Shikato has done it, he can complete it perfectly, which saves Danzo a lot of worry. However, Danzo is really a hater, and he is no less tolerant than Uchiha. During the period when Shikato was protecting him, he was ambushed by ninjas or rebels from various countries at least 10 times. This was only in a short period of time. No wonder Danzo hid underground every day. Whenever he went out, it was like a hornet's nest, and a large number of assassins all came to him in a suicidal manner. There were even rebel ninjas from the Land of Fire, who were probably forced into a corner by Danzo, and the result was that Konoha saved a bounty. However, this bounty was embezzled by Shikato, and Danzo didn't care about this little money, because Shikato was considerate. But sometimes, Shikato gave him a headache. The health rule of going to bed early and getting up early has not changed at all even after joining the route. Getting up early doesn't matter, but going to bed early is outrageous. Sometimes, Danzo has an urgent task to be explained, but when he finds Shikato, he finds that he is sleeping soundly. It was easy to wake him up, and even after waking up, he would still obey the arrangements. But the person who woke him up would always have all kinds of bad luck afterwards, and some would even die, resulting in few people in the route willing to take on this job. Danzo once tried it himself out of disbelief. He didn't die, but he had bad luck for several days in a row, and he didn't know how many times he fell on flat ground. He was already old, but he still got a blue face from falling, and every time he had bad luck, he could always find the shadow of Dear Man nearby. From then on, unless it was a particularly important mission, Danzo would stagger the time. As for Dear Man, he was reluctant to punish him because he was so considerate to use him. At this stage, most of the people in the route are still children, and they are in training, and they are indeed not as useful as Dear Man. Chapter 20, Rain Village Action. In the route department, in the underground ninjutsu secret room, Shikato sat on a lazy cushion, with a wooden table next to him. There was a small pot on the table, and under the pot was a small oil stove he often used. In the pot was a large plate of braised pork. There was also a pot of sake and a wine glass next to him. Shikato was half sitting on the cushion comfortably, holding a scroll of sealing techniques in his hand, reading it with relish. From time to time, he would pick up a piece of meat with chopsticks, and occasionally pick up the sake and sip twice. Suddenly, a slightly cold voice came from the door. Tisk tisk, you are here after all. Shikato put away the scroll and looked up at the other party. Are there any tasks? Aburain Ryoma was a little envious of Shikato, who could live such a comfortable life in the route department. He was also valued more and more by Lord Danzo, which was completely different from the ninjas who worked hard and were worried every day. I always feel that Shikato is what is called health preservation, while they are raised like animals by Lord Danzo. Aburain Ryoma just sighed in his heart and didn't think about it anymore. Instead, he said to Shikato, Danzo has reminded you many times that you can drink by yourself, but don't force those children to drink, especially him. After saying that, he glanced at Kabuto Yakushi, who was lying not far from Shikato and was drunk. The little boy, about 6 or 7 years old, wore a pair of round glasses on his nose. Because he had been injured before and his eyesight was damaged, Kabuto Yakushi had been wearing a pair of glasses given to him by the director of the orphanage, Yakushi Nono. This pair of glasses was regarded as a treasure by Kabuto Yakushi. Kabuto Yakushi was noticed by Danzo because of his outstanding talent, and he was invited, threatened, to join the route department. Danzo planned to train Kabuto Yakushi to be a spy-type ninja, who could be sent to various countries to lurk, and he was a relatively scarce talent in the route. Kabuto Yakushi was talented, precocious, and an extremely obedient child. Faced with a harsh and somewhat inhuman training arranged by Danzo, Kabuto Yakushi was always able to grit his teeth and persevere at a young age. He was exposed to the wind and sun, but he never complained. Shikato thought he was quite interesting, so he liked to force him to drink a little wine to help him relax a little. Otherwise, at such a young age, his shoulders would not be able to bear it. And Kabuto Yakushi was young to begin with, and his alcohol tolerance was even worse. Basically, he would get drunk after one glass. After Shikato poured a glass of wine, he could sleep for half a day. As for Danzo's warning, Shikato didn't take it seriously. His relationship with Danzo was in the honeymoon period, and a little friction was no problem, and they would not fall out over such a small matter. Before the group of children in the root department trained by Danzo grew up, Shikato would be Danzo's most useful assistant. Aburame Ryoma stood at the door and said, "I'm going to the Hidden Rain village tomorrow night. I didn't want to disturb you, but I think I'd better ask, are you interested?" The Hidden Rain village was basically well prepared, and Danzo didn't think it was necessary to use Shikato's trump card. However, his character was cautious, and he subconsciously asked his subordinates to come over and ask. When Shikato heard about the evening, he immediately shook his head. "Forget about the evening. Unless it's a very important mission, I need to take care of my health at night." "I know," Aburame Ryoma nodded. "Forget it, it's not a serious matter. It's just a group of kids playing house." Shikato was about to pick up the scroll and continue reading, but suddenly he was stunned, then turned to look at Aburame Ryoma. "Where are you talking about, huh?" "The Hidden Rain village." "What?" "Well, I suddenly think it's good to move around occasionally." Shikato stood up. He almost forgot that the first leader of the Akatsuki organization, Yohiko, seemed to have died during this period. The exact time was unclear, but it involved the Hidden Rain village and was related to Danzo, and it was during this war period, so there was a high probability that he couldn't escape. Shikato decided to make an exception and go over to take a look. He was not worried that Nagato would explode the Outer Path Demon statue and destroy his long-term meal ticket in an instant. Danzo was so cowardly, but he lied to the second part. Shikato just wanted to go over and see if there was any chance to touch the pair of Samsara eyes. He will not stay in the root forever. After all, Danzo has no good intentions. When he is needed, he will naturally tolerate him. When the root department grows stronger, who knows how to plot against him. However, before the fourth Hokage is selected, Shikato estimates that Danzo will need to borrow his power, and he is happy to do so. Aburame Ryoma was somewhat surprised that Shikato agreed to the trip to the Hidden Rain village. "I didn't expect you to take the initiative to agree to this night action. It's really rare, you have to stretch your muscles occasionally. After all, you have to live up to the kindness of Danzo, so you know to repay Danzo. Do you need me to shut up for you manually?" "No, thank you, you're welcome. Let's talk about the mission. We will perform a good show with Hanzo, the leader of the Hidden Rain village, to attract a new force in the Hidden Rain village, and take the opportunity to eliminate this force, a new force in a small village. Is it necessary?" "I also think it is unnecessary. After all, they are just a group of hot-blooded young people. But if Lord Danzo thinks it is necessary, then it must be necessary. Forget it, as long as he is happy." Shikato sometimes really doubts Danzo's train of thought. Just because the newly emerging Akatsuki organization put forward the slogan of peace, he actually wants to destroy them, and even persuades Hanzo to attack Akatsuki together. To say that Danzo is narrow-minded is a compliment. He is cautious and would even kill an ant at the crime scene. Who made Danzo a militant? What he hates most is the ninja who shouts for peace all day long. The concept of Akatsuki is still very popular in small countries during wartime, so its scale grows rapidly. If it is allowed to unite with Hanzo and continue to spread to the surrounding areas, it may really affect the Ninja World War. Danzo does not want the war to end too early, at least when Konoha has the advantage. It cannot end early. We are almost winning, and you suddenly stand up and call for peace. Isn't this asking for a beating? So he racked his brains to persuade Hanzo to join forces to destroy Akatsuki. There are only more than 100 people in Akatsuki. But with Danzo's caution, he brought more than 20 ANBU and more than 10 members of the root to act together. Well, the third Hokage also agreed to this plan. After all, the battlefield situation is very good for Konoha now, and the Land of Earth has ceased its war. There is only the Hidden Cloud Village in the Land of Lightning, and it is the Hidden Cloud Village after the sacrifice of the third Hokage. To put it bluntly, even if Tsunade has left, it can still take advantage. What's more, the Hidden Cloud Village is still in constant friction with the Hidden Sand Village, and it needs to divide its troops to guard a defense line. In this advantageous situation, Sarutobi Hiruzen would be very unhappy if something else happened. So under Danzo's encouragement, the third Hokage finally acquiesced. But Sarutobi Hiruzen did not nod or shake his head, but just smoked and looked into the distance. Danzo said that he understood it very well and made arrangements himself. In addition to the people arranged by Danzo, according to the agreement with Hanzo, Hanzo will also send more than 200 rain ninjas to participate in the encirclement and suppression of the Akatsuki organization. With such a scale, Danzo was still cautious and brought in Dearman as a backup. It can only be said that he was very surviving, no wonder he almost survived to the end. Chapter 21 I am loyal to Danzo-sama. The Hidden Rain Village. The Hidden Rain Village's geographical location is really bad, sandwiched between the Kingdom of Wind, the Kingdom of Earth, and the Kingdom of Fire. In all the previous Ninja World Wars, there was not a single one that could be avoided. During the Second War, Hanzo of the Salamander was at his peak, and there were few people in the entire ninja world who could confront him head-on. As a result, the Hidden Rain Village was beaten up by the three big brothers next to it. The Third Ninja World War still did not escape the fate of being beaten, but the intensity was not as exaggerated as the second time. After all, the second time, the Hidden Rain Village resisted. Hanzo of the Salamander was really glorious, but it was hard for the villagers and ninjas in the village. Now, Hanzo of the Salamander chooses to lie down. You can fight as you like, I will make room for you. As long as it is not too excessive, Hanzo chooses to turn a blind eye. Although it is also very hard, it is much better than the Second Ninja World War. Most of the buildings here are made of reinforced concrete. Many blocks or buildings are wrapped with countless huge steel pipes, most of which are used to divert rainwater. After all, it rains here almost all year round, and the ground is flooded too seriously, so the rainwater needs to be diverted into a huge lake outside. When Danzo led his subordinates here, the sky was still raining. Everyone put on a black raincoat. More than 20 ANBU and more than 10 root people gathered together, which was quite oppressive. They arrived at a place agreed with Hanzo early, and the rain ninjas led by Hanzo of the Salamander waited for a long time. Hanzo glanced at the more than 30 elite ninjas behind Danzo, and didn't know whether it was ironic or praise. You are still so cautious, Danzo. Danzo stopped and said, Hanzo of the Salamander, you are old. Hanzo is indeed a little old, with a lot of white hair in his hair, and his strength has also declined a lot. But he was very dissatisfied with Danzo's words. Danzo, you seem to have forgotten that you and I are the same age? Danzo, if you didn't say it, I really forgot. I haven't looked in the mirror for a long time. Am I so old? Hanzo did not continue to be angry, but sighed. Time is not forgiving, now is the era of those young people. Danzo was very unhappy with this sentence. Humph, that's why we have to kill those young people. Hanzo, can you speak properly? After not seeing each other for a few years, are you so neurotic now? The conversation ended, and the two sides exchanged information with each other, and then each stood on a commanding height. Dearman pressed the brim of his hat, stood beside Danzo, and whispered, there are still a few hours before the agreed time. I want to walk around. Danzo turned around and said in a gloomy tone, what do you want to do? It's a rare trip to the rain country. I just want to walk around here. I am loyal to Danzo. Don't say boring things. Remember to come back on time. I will. Dearman turned and left. However, when leaving, he keenly noticed that among the ANBU accompanying this time, one person's mask only revealed one eye, and the other eye was in the place of a dark blue cloth. Shikato paused, and then deliberately bumped into the ANBU as he passed by. He then pretended to take a half step back, and patted the other person on the shoulder. Be careful, ANBU colleague. Under the mask, Kakashi frowned. He didn't like the root people, and the man in front of him was obviously doing it on purpose. Shikato was now certain of his thoughts. It was indeed Hokage Kakashi. Did he also withdraw from the front line because of a Biro's matter? And he also joined the ANBU. He didn't think much about it, and just passed by Kakashi. As Shikato left, Danzo nodded slightly to the other side. Then a root person covered his breath and followed him instantly. Shikato entered the city of the Hidden Rain Village. Compared with the tall buildings unique to the Hidden Rain Village, his figure seemed extremely small. In the distance, the root people were quietly lurking under the rain, following Shikato silently. His stealth skills were indeed amazing, especially after he kept a certain distance from Dearman. Dearman could not sense anything unusual at all. However, Dearman stood out to hide from others. He did not care if anyone was following him. He even hoped to be followed. When his footsteps stepped into the shadows of the tall buildings in the city, the shadows under his feet also merged with the buildings. When he was about to disappear in the street, the root people followed him like a ghost. He sniffed with his nose and chased after him. After he left, a black shadow with a human outline stood up in the shadow. Finally, it took the shape of Dearman. Shadow clone. A true shadow clone, a clone made of shadow. Compared with the fragility of ordinary shadow clones, the shadow clone convinced by Dearman with the top shadow manipulation technique has half the combat level of the original body. Whether it is ability or other aspects, it is half the level. But the top armed color domineering, even if it is half the level, it is also extraordinary. It should be able to deal with the matter at hand. At the same time, this kind of shadow clone has another convenience, that is, he can change his appearance at will, and this change is difficult to be recognized. After all, it is just a group of shadows. However, the disadvantages are also obvious. First, the shadow clone does not have an independent consciousness and must be controlled by the spirit of the main body. As a result, the dear man not only needs to do two things at the same time, but also the main body cannot be too far away from the clone. Within a certain distance of the hidden rain village, it can basically be barely maintained. If it is farther away, the shadow clone will easily disperse. The second point is that the shadow clone has half the level of the main body, which means that it not only inherits the powerful domineering and shadow manipulation skills of the main body. Even the weaknesses of the main body have been inherited in multiples, and his current chakra and physique have also been halved. If you want to show your effect in the next action, then the armed color domineering and shadow manipulation skills will inevitably be exposed. After all, these two characteristics are a bit too obvious and can be easily detected. So it needs to be concealed to a certain extent. The main body went around the hidden rain village and went back with a route like a dog's nose. The other party nodded to Danzo in advance, reported the whereabouts of Shikato, and finally said, "From the beginning to the end, he has been under my surveillance, he can't hide it from me." Danzo has great confidence in this person's ability. Although he is a little puzzled that Shikato has inexplicably wandered around the hidden rain village, he just thinks that he has a brain injury. When the main body returned to the formation, it deliberately bumped into Kakashi's shoulder again. This time, several ANBU seniors around Kakashi couldn't help it. Kakashi quickly stopped the seniors. Now is not a good time to argue. Shikato turned his head to look at Kakashi, and said in an extremely cold voice, "Be careful, young ANBU colleague." After that, he passed by again. Kakashi's pupils shrank. How did he know my age? Danzo turned around and looked at him again. "What are you doing?" "I just saw a good colleague and reminded him. I am not doing anything wrong. I am loyal to Danzo." "Your acting has become more and more perfunctory." "I swear to be loyal to Danzo until death." "Okay, stop talking nonsense and wait quietly." "Yes." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22, Simple Zianan. After the main body returned to the team, he temporarily focused most of his attention on the shadow clone. The clone found an empty corner, reshaped, and the black shadow surged. In a moment, a soft and cute little boy appeared in the original place. He was only about 4 or 5 years old, dirty all over, and his clothes were very worn. There were many such children in the hidden rain village, especially during the war. However, most of them had died silently in some corners, and their bodies were pecked by crows. Such an identity is the easiest to avoid some probing eyes. The shadow clone has a natural advantage in changing. It can almost do whatever it wants, and it is not easy to be discovered. The clone walked on the street and glanced at the nearby buildings quickly. He wanted to try to find the Yohiko trio in the hidden rain village before the time came, or some members of the Akatsuki organization. If possible, he would not mind lending a hand to them. Of course, the premise is that it cannot affect the main body of the dear man. The clone was initially searching in a rather scattered manner, and it was up to fate whether he could find it or not. But slowly, he began to shuttle quickly between the buildings. His sights kept searching in the surroundings. If he had enough chakra, he could use the shadows everywhere to search quickly. But chakra was his weakness, so he had no choice but to use this most difficult method. The clone's small stature jumped up, and after a few ups and downs, he jumped directly to the top floor of a building, looking down at the nearby streets from a high vantage point. The raindrops fell, completely hiding the sounds in the distance. The clone searched for a long time, but still found nothing. After all, the hidden rain village is only a very small country compared to the 5 major countries, but it is still a country after all. From this point of view, It can only be said that the fate between the two sides is not enough. Seeing that the time was getting closer and closer, the clone jumped back to the street below. Sitting cross-legged on a steel pipe in the rain, he lowered his head and began to consider whether to continue to intervene. If the two sides come to a fight, it will be much more troublesome to intervene at that time. And we have to consider whether it is worth it. Duh. While he was thinking, a coin slipped and was thrown far away at the feet of the clone. The clone subconsciously picked up the coin and looked up. But he saw a young man with short orange hair about 6 or 7 meters away, grinning at him. Hey, use it to buy a bun. Believe me, suffering will eventually leave us, peace is not far away, I have seen the dawn. After listening to his words full of second-year illness, the clone looked at the coin again, and finally glanced at his clothes, and his eyes lit up. It seems that we are destined to be together, and we are from Akatsuki. The clone paused for a moment, then threw the coin back. This little money is not enough to send off a beggar. You should go back and use it to see a doctor. You are obviously the kind of person with a bad brain. Seeing that the money was about to fly away, the orange-haired young man jumped up in a panic and caught his own money. Then he rushed over in 2 or 3 steps and scolded the clone, "Idiot. This is the hard-earned money of our brothers. Only food and money should not be wasted." The clone waved his hand. I know. You are an eyesore. Go away, little brat." The orange-haired young man was furious. "Who are you talking about, little brat?" When the dear man was about to speak, a voice came from the corner of the street. "Hey, you are here." A beautiful female ninja wearing a black stand-up collar coat, long blue hair over the ears, and a blue paper flower on the top of her head came over. She had a fair complexion, a good figure, and her eyes were dyed with light blue eyeshadow. "Yohiko, everyone is waiting for you. What are you doing here?" When Zianen came over, she saw Yohiko yelling at a soft and cute little boy. After seeing the cute look of the child, he felt distressed. "Yohiko, what are you doing? You are so grown up, why are you still bullying a child?" After that, he grabbed the clone and hugged it in his arms with heartache comfort. "Don't be afraid, sister will help you drive away the bad guys." Yohiko saw Zianen coming. His face turned red, but when he saw Zianen picked up the little brat without hesitation, his face changed again. Sure enough, the stinky child threw himself on Zianen's chest and said in a baby voice, "Pretty sister, that uncle is so fierce. I'm scared." Women are born with no resistance to cute creatures. Zianen almost felt her bones soften when she heard it. It was too cute. Yohiko was stunned for a moment. "Sister? Uncle? Do I look so old?" Then he saw that the clone in Zianen's arms raised his head a little and glanced at him with a look of contempt. From his angle, he could just see the clone's extremely annoying smile. Yohiko almost exploded. "Konan, this little brat is laughing at me. He is taking advantage of you." The clone said that he was scared and cried, and kept pushing into Konan's arms, and said in a crying tone, "Sister, he is a bad guy, he is so fierce. Beat him away." Konan glared at Yohiko. "What are you talking about? He is still so young, can you not scare him?" "Really?" Yohiko clearly saw that the little brat took the opportunity to secretly give him a middle finger, and then pretended to be pitiful and hugged Konan to act cute. Yohiko was almost vomiting blood in anger. Where did this little brat come from? It's so unlovable. Konan patiently comforted the clone, and then said to Yohiko, "Wait here, his home is nearby. I will take him home first, and I will be back soon." Yohiko was so angry at the clone's eagerness to show off that he felt short of breath and couldn't speak. Konan held the clone and followed the direction the clone pointed at randomly. After a few quick takeoffs and landings, he landed in an alley. "Hey, is your family here?" Zianen put the clone on the ground and looked around in confusion. "Strange, there is no one around." She could only turn around and ask the clone, "Where's your family?" The clone pointed behind Zianen with a look of surprise. "Ah, my wife." Zianen subconsciously turned around and looked. Then she suddenly woke up. "No, my wife." But before she could turn around, her vision suddenly went black. The whole person went limp. In the last second before she lost consciousness, she vaguely heard a man's voice. "Didn't Jiraiya teach you? Peace is never said. Have a good sleep, simple girl." A crisp hand knife fell. The clone returned to adult state, holding Zianen and placing her under a remote eaves in a corner. He adjusted the corners of his clothes, and then his appearance and clothes changed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he was exactly the same as the unconscious Zianen in the corner. While walking back, he recalled the orange-haired young man just now. That was Yohiko. Quite interesting. On the street, Yohiko was still anxiously waiting for Konan. After seeing the transformed Konan, he quickly came up to her. "Konan, did that little brat take advantage of you again?" The clone adjusted his voice slightly. "No way, such a pure and kind child." Pure and kind. Yohiko seriously suspected that the guy who had given him the middle finger, mocked him, and provoked him with his eyes before was the same person as the child in Konan's mouth. "Okay, let's go. Everyone is still waiting for us." Oh, okay, let's go back quickly. It's time." Yohiko looked up at the hazy and gloomy weather, and said with confidence, "Don't worry, our ideal will eventually come true." The clone glanced at him. "Well, it was just a dream." Chapter 23 Drama Queen Online. More than 100 people from the Akatsuki organization were all waiting in a dilapidated underground pipe. No wonder the clone had been searching for so long but didn't see a single figure. Wearing a black coat with a vertical collar and a corset around the waist, the one standing in the front waiting was the red-haired Nagato. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, Nagato had a striking fiery red hair color. But the hair on his forehead was a little long, covering one eye, and the other was half covered, giving him a sinister temperament. Seeing Yohiko and Konan coming back, Nagato took the initiative to greet them. Yohiko nodded to him. Nagato looked at Konan again. His heart skipped a beat. Strangely, he always felt that there was something out of harmony with Konan. Just as he was thinking, Yohiko suddenly spoke up. "We have been looking forward to this informal peace talk tonight for a long time, and we have also made enough sacrifices for it. Even if it is just a little hope, just a small step towards peace, it can prove that our pursuit is worthwhile. Peace will eventually come." The atmosphere was right, and most of the more than 100 ninjas of the Akatsuki organization below were passionate young people, and they immediately responded with a roar. "Let's go." Yohiko took the lead and stepped into the rain. Nagato had no time to think about it, so he could only follow him. The clone followed quietly on the other side, and more than 100 ninjas followed closely behind. The agreed place was not too far away. The group soon arrived at the agreed location. Outside the entrance of a valley, there were ninjas arranged in advance guarding here. He stopped Yohiko and others. "The outsiders just need to wait here." Yohiko also agreed with this. After all, it was an informal peace talk, which was more or less secretive. It was impossible for a group of people to go up and talk. He raised his hand to signal everyone to wait quietly, then he looked at Nagato and Konan, nodded to each other, and the three of them entered the valley together. Because it was raining all the time, both the smell and the traces were well covered. The three did not find the ambush on both sides of the valley, but looked at the four figures in the distance. Hanzo of the Salamander and his close guard, Divine Fire Chizun. And the elders of the Konoha Ninja Village, Shimura Danzo of the Root Department and his close assistant Nara Shikato. The three of them breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that Hanzo did not lie to us and did invite the people of the Konoha Ninja Village to come over for a talk. The three of them walked over, and Yohiko took the initiative to speak, very politely. "Your distinguished guests have come from afar, and I am sorry for not welcoming you. I am Yohiko, the leader of the Akatsuki organization." He had just finished this friendly introduction, and the guard Divine Fire Chizun beside Hanzo of the Salamander, and the deer man beside Danzo suddenly rushed out. In an instant, they rushed in front of them. As soon as Nagato shouted "Be careful," Shenho's Hikian rushed over, and he could only defend himself hastily. At the same time, the figure of Deerman appeared in front of Yohiko. "Hey, be careful." After a chuckle, Deerman kicked Yohiko fiercely. Yohiko was also alert enough, and his arm guard blocked his chest. But he didn't expect that the power of Deerman's kick would be so terrifying. Bang! The air seemed to explode. Crack! Yohiko felt an unprecedented violent force, and it felt that his arm bones should have been broken and hit his chest, and then the terrifying force kicked him out. His feet left the ground and flew away quickly in a horizontal V shape. He couldn't hold back a mouthful of blood in the air. He flew dozens of meters away, and after landing, he rolled and hit the ground several times before finally stopping. Yohiko half knelt on the ground, spitting out a large mouthful of blood again, and his arms were in unbearable pain. Nagato was entangled by the Divine Fire Chizun, and he wanted to hide the power of the Samsara Eye, but when he saw Yohiko was kicked away in an instant, he immediately became angry. However, Hanzo had already passed by with an extremely fast instant body technique before he lost his temper. When he appeared again, he was already standing on a high ground on one side of the valley, and he was holding the wrists of the clone with his left hand, and took out a kunai with his right hand and pressed it against the clone's neck. Below, Danzo said calmly, "After all, you are just a group of young people. I overestimated you." After saying that, he flashed and appeared on the high ground on the other side of the valley. The divine fire chism was also kicked away by Nagato at this time, and he jumped away from the battlefield and appeared next to Hanzo. Shikato also returned to Danzo's side. Hanzo, on the other hand, looked at Shikato with a little surprise. The previous kick of this guy looked ordinary, but the power was so terrifying. Nagato helped Yahiko up, and the two of them looked at Hanzo angrily at the same time. "Salamander Hanzo, you actually deceived us, the original dear man. Not only that, he also wants to kill you." The cool breeze blew, and the atmosphere was a little cold. Kakashi looked at the dear man in front of him with his right eye. What's wrong with this guy? Does he have the right to speak here? Is the route so free? Hanzo was also a little speechless, but he quickly turned to the business. "You better not act rashly, or I will kill this woman." After saying that, the tip of the kunai was against the neck of the clone. Yahiko and Nagato were immediately panicked. Konan, the three of them were war orphans, and they depended on each other since childhood. Their feelings were extremely deep. They were even willing to sacrifice their lives for each other. The clone was also acting like a drama queen. "Yanayan, Menman, don't worry about me, just run." The whole audience suddenly became silent, and looked at the clone in surprise. She is a beautiful woman. Why is her tone so hypocritical and frivolous? Hanzo felt goosebumps on his clone's arm. Hiko? Menman? What a terrible name. It's so shameless. Hanzo, who has a serious personality, can't stand frivolous people, especially frivolous women. Because he was hurt before, but he just didn't say it. Hanzo didn't expect that the three leaders of the Akatsuki organization, whom he regarded as a huge threat, were actually in this kind of relationship. He didn't doubt anything, but just said coldly, "Shut up." The red-haired man below, "As long as you kill Yahiko, I will let your beloved woman go." Nagato and Yahiko were confused. Shenho's Hikian tactfully threw a kunai at Nagato, nailing him firmly in front of him. Hanzo suppressed his nausea and continued to give cold orders. "Pick it up, kill Yahiko, and I will let this woman go." Below, Yahiko and Nagato seemed to be frozen, looking at the clone motionlessly. They were also broken by the words just now. When did Zion become like this? Because it was a dead end? The clone said that I knew how to cooperate, and immediately shouted, "No, Menman, you and Yanayan are both my wings. Don't kill each other, it will hurt my heart." Everyone present, one by one, all got goosebumps. Are the three leaders of the Akatsuki organization playing so tricks? Chapter 24, Darkness. Yahiko and Nagato opened their mouths wide. Does Konan know what she is saying? The clone was in a playful mood and continued his performance. "Go away, just pretend I don't know you and forget me. The person I really love now is Hanzo-sama. Even if I die in his hands, I will not regret it. All this is just our mistake." Hanzo almost trembled and directly stabbed the kunai into the clone's neck. What a shameless and frivolous woman. How shameless. I am already old, but I actually, it's too late to say anything now. All around, whether it is the Rain Ninja or the Konoha Ninja, they all looked at Hanzo and the clone he was holding with strange faces. Danzo sneered, "Hey, Hanzo, what are you doing?" Hanzo said, "I want to know too." And below, at this time, Yahiko and Nagato also saw that the person captured above was not Konan at all. It is not clear where the real Konan is, but the person who said such disgusting words is definitely not Konan. As if to confirm their thoughts, pieces of white paper fluttered down from the sky above the valley. After finally falling down and reuniting, Konan showed up and asked with concern, "Yahiko, Nagato, are you alright?" She came in a hurry, using the wings of paper escape to fly directly from the sky. Before landing, she had already noticed the tense atmosphere below. She helped Yahiko up and her eyes fell on Hanzo. After seeing the face that looked exactly like her own, she suddenly thought of something and her face changed. She still remembered the ruthless mocking voice when she was knocked unconscious. And the child who was obviously very cute but now made her back a little cold. The rest of the people present were all stunned. What the hell? How come there is another woman who looks exactly like her? Hanzo reacted quickly, and used a kunai to push the neck of the clone, and asked coldly, "Who are you?" Seeing that the real owner had arrived, there was no more fun. The clone, whose hands were held by Hanzo, began to tremble all over, and then his neck turned backwards little by little. Finally, it showed a strange 180-degree rotation, and twisted its face directly to the back, facing Hanzo, revealing a very strange smile. "I am a ghost, wow," Hanzo almost cursed, and his body instantly distanced himself from the clone. He raised his hand and slapped the ground. "I don't care if you are a human or a ghost, die for me." Fire style, explosive flame formation. Under the feet of the clone, the originally solid ground suddenly floated up with detonating talismans, sticking to the clone's legs, and then spreading wildly upward along the clone's legs. Hanzo clapped his hands. Boom! A huge explosion sounded, and the clone, which was completely wrapped in the detonating talisman, was instantly blown into pieces. Then after the flames of the explosion dissipated, strands of black thin lines shot towards the bottom of the valley. Danzo on the other side frowned and turned to look at Dearman. "Does that thing look like a shadow?" Dearman sat upright. Since Danzo had no evidence, he said seriously, "I am loyal to Danzo-sama, the sun and the moon can testify to that." "Humph, it's better that it has nothing to do with you." Danzo didn't continue to pester him. After all, Dearman had been standing beside him, and was basically within his surveillance range the whole time. It was indeed a real person who stood here. If it was a clone, it shouldn't be able to do that. Danzo didn't think about it anymore, but stared at the bottom of the valley. The black silk thread fell beside Yohiko, and finally solidified into the appearance of a 4 or 5-year-old kid, with a chubby little face, but it looked quite cute. Yohiko was shocked. "It's you. Little kid." The clone first glanced at Yohiko. "Tisk, look at your current state, so weak." Yohiko's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't refute it. He was indeed kicked like this. Konan subconsciously called out how cute, and then immediately came back to her senses. "No, who are you?" The clone, "Now is not the time to dwell on these things." He looked at Nagato on the other side. "Hey, it's time to show your eyes." Nagato's heart suddenly bulged. This guy who suddenly appeared actually knew the secret of the eyes. Yohiko became serious. "No, Nagato, don't forget that we advocate peace without using force." The clone glanced at Yohiko and asked Konan, "Did he have his head cut open when he was a child, and that person also stole his brain?" Konan obviously didn't want to pay attention to him, but she couldn't help but look at the clone. It was too cute. However, Konan didn't answer him. She was still resentful of the fact that this guy knocked her out, and the other party was still unknown after all. Yohiko was a bit stubborn, and he yelled at the clone directly, "Damn little brat, you are the one whose brain was stolen. You have no brains. No brains. No brains. No brains." Above the valley, veins on Hanzo's forehead were throbbing. "Hey, Yohiko, why don't you consider the occasion before arguing with others? The guy I have been working hard to deal with is just this kind of bastard." Hanzo always felt that it was too stupid to be threatened by such a person. The clone just spit out 2 words to counterattack Yohiko, "Idiot." Yohiko's mentality exploded, but fortunately he still knew the overall situation. Noticing the dense crowd of ninjas around him, he immediately said, "Everyone be careful." The clone couldn't stand him any longer. "Can you please stop talking nonsense?" The ninjas in the surrounding valleys were already getting restless, and immediately turned to Nagato and said, "At this time, none of you can escape without using those eyes. I'll assist, and you attack." Nagato quickly reacted. "Konan, take Yohiko back a little." Yohiko wanted to say something, but the kick from the deer man's original body was really not light, and he almost vomited blood in impulse. Konan gritted her teeth and could only take Yohiko back a little temporarily. Nagato turned his head and stared at the clone. "What should we do? Now both sides are in the same situation. No matter what the other party's purposes, they can only work together back to back for the time being." The clone smiled. "Although there is not much chakra, I can still do that move, Nagato." The clone quickly formed seals with his hands skillfully. Thanks to the care of Danzo-sama, otherwise he would not be able to use this ninjutsu. The next second, with the deer man as the center, an overwhelming darkness instantly eroded reality. Illusion, darkness walking technique. In the blink of an eye, the entire valley, inside and outside, was completely plunged into darkness. On both sides of the valley, Danzo, who had been swearing, changed his face. The darkness walking technique of the first and second Hokage? This illusion is not so easy to break. Most of the time. It can only be slowly polished with time. The more chakra a person has, the faster it will break. But even so, it cannot be broken in 3 or 5 seconds, unless it is a Jinchuariki. At this time, the best way is to use external forces. However, once the darkness walking technique is launched, it often blocks a large area. People trapped in the illusion cannot help others to solve it. Fortunately, the darkness walking technique only blocks vision and has no effect on people with sensitive hearing and smell. Of course, for people with rich combat experience, the effect is also limited. Danzo called out to the darkness, "Ma-chi, I leave it to you." "Yes, Lord Danzo." Two people from the root stood up and answered. Chapter 25 Love will disappear. Although Aburame Ryoma has no advantage in hearing and smell, but many of the insects he raises are also immune to darkness. As for the other one, Chiba, he is from the Inuzuka clan. He has a keen sense of smell and can firmly lock the enemy with just the smell. But the two have not started to show their power yet. There was a bang in the valley, and smoke rose. The summoning technique, the outer demon statue. At present, Nagato's mastery and use of the Samsara Eye is still very limited. The strongest means is this summoning technique, and it has a great backlash on itself, and a lot of essence will be swallowed up. This is also the main reason why Hiko does not want Nagato to use the Samsara Eye. A huge wooden statue suddenly broke out of the ground. The huge hands supported the ground, the bald head, the eyes were covered by a white cloth, and there were broken columnar cuts around the neck. As soon as he appeared on the stage, the extremely strong and ominous chakra frightened everyone in the audience. As the shell of the 10-tailed beast, the outer path demon statue is extremely fierce even if it is just a shell. A beast-like roar resounded through the valley. A pitch-black sensor rod reached out and inserted into Nagato's back. Nagato's body began to lose weight at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the outer path demon statue's mouth opened wider and wider, and spit out a translucent blue chakra dragon. The dragon roared past in the darkness. No ninja who was touched could stand up. From the outside, they seemed to have no injuries, but they were all dead. The dark walk technique was released to teammates, but restricted the enemy. This also made Nagato's outer path demon statue look particularly terrifying, and people were constantly being harvested in the dark. Hanzo's face was also very solemn. He was not afraid of the dark walk technique alone. With his rich combat experience, he could only judge the general situation based on the subtle sound of the wind and movement. But the summoned creature that appeared in the darkness made him a little creepy. The dragon's head raised high slammed into Hanzo. The slight sound of wind in the air told him that there was danger. Hanzo moved away in an instant and retreated a certain distance. His instant body technique was so fast that the deer man envied him. He was so old and still so fast. It was too much. The dragon missed the attack, and instead swept away a wave of enemies around, and then rushed towards Danzo who was nearby. A member of the route beside Danzo was very respectful. After sensing the danger, he rushed forward directly. Then, the next second, accompanied by a scream, it turned silent. Danzo's face changed, and he was about to retreat. A breeze blew around him. After the armed color domineering covered his whole body, the deer man's body began to show his power. The clone was powerful, and of course his body had to act more seriously. Armed color domineering can defend against almost all attacks, whether they are physical or not, even soul attacks. In front of armed color, both visible and invisible can be captured, which is why domineering can touch the natural system. The deer man's body kicked the dragon head away with one foot. The huge dragon head and its long body flew out for more than 100 meters, smashing into the valley, splashing gravel all over the ground. Danzo also understood that it was the deer man who came to the rescue. In the valley, Nagato was a little shocked. The outer path demon statue was defeated by that man. This was something he had never thought of. The chakra dragon climbed up again, swung its huge body, and rushed madly. As a result, when it rushed to Danzo again, the deer man kicked it and kicked it away again. Danzo finally calmed down and even felt a little proud. You are worthy of it, Nara deer man. After all, he discovered the terrifying strength of the deer man and won him over, and so far he has assisted him unreservedly, which made him feel at ease. The outer path demon statue seemed to be angry too. It has always been the one who beat others, and it has never been beaten by others. It suddenly sucked a stream of Nagato's energy, beating Nagato to skinny on the spot, and scared the deer man who was having fun. Then the outer path demon statue spewed out another chakra dragon from its mouth. The two dragons attacked the surroundings separately. This time, Shikato didn't dare to be too arrogant, otherwise he was worried that Nagato would be sucked to death. The destructive power of the two chakra dragons was extremely terrifying. After sweeping around, even Hanzo had to temporarily retreat with his subordinates, otherwise he would be left alone. Danzo was as steady as a rock. With Shikato there, it didn't matter if it was one or two. After all, Shikato was a tough guy who could tear the tailed beasts apart with his bare hands. When the chakra dragon rushed over here, Shikato was about to make a move. But he noticed that another dragon went straight to the ANBU and swept over. Under the cover of the dark movement technique, the chakra dragon, which was not slow to begin with, directly devoured several inexperienced ANBU in an instant. Shikato noticed that Kakashi was also half a beat slower in his reaction. Immediately gave up Danzo's position and punched the chakra dragon in front of Kakashi into the valley. At this time, Danzo continued to stand there calmly, hearing the sound of wind in his ears. At first, he thought that Dearman was going to attack again. As a result, the wind was getting farther and farther away from him, so, love will disappear, bah. Danzo's face darkened, and he dodged with the instant body technique. The dragon devoured 3 root members who failed to dodge in time. At this time, Dearman's voice came, Danzo, retreat, I can't take care of so many colleagues. Danzo wanted to say that you just need to take care of me, where did you go just now? But after a silence, he nodded in agreement. For now, we should get rid of the dark walking technique first. Otherwise, the situation is too passive, and we have no idea what is attacking in the dark. Besides, Hanzo also dodged first, so it doesn't make much sense for him to stay. Although this operation was not successful, the Akatsuki organization will not be able to make any waves in the short term. After all, more than half of the Akatsuki members outside the valley were killed. Even if Akatsuki can still stand up, because of this incident, they can't join forces with Hanzo, so their influence will be quite limited. It's just a pity that they couldn't deal with the 3 leaders. And who is the mysterious man who suddenly disrupted the situation? Claiming to be a ghost? Humph. A ghost. After Danzo led his men out of the dark walk technique, he retreated a long distance before stopping, looking at the dear man with dissatisfaction. Seeing that he was still carrying a person from the ANBU, his face suddenly became darker. What are you doing, abandoning me just to save this guy from the ANBU? Bah! Did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? Shikato put Kakashi, who was struggling, down and rubbed his head hard. A 12-year-old ANBU, doesn't Lord Danzo appreciate it? Kakashi slapped Shikato's hand away angrily. He felt that this guy was familiar with him, so he was not afraid of anything and just snorted. Danzo was about to get angry, but when he heard the 12-year-old ANBU, his eyes suddenly lit up. Hatake Kakashi, I didn't expect that he was also on this mission. A 12-year-old Jonin, plus his father's reputation, I heard that he also got a Sharingan, so Kakashi's future achievements can be imagined. After all, in Danzo's understanding, a pig with a Sharingan can be 100 times stronger. How could he know that Kakashi, who got the Sharingan, did not undergo a transformation, but was evenly matched with anyone in the future? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.